Today with Ari and James, Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio on a Modelo Monday. Hello, team. T-Chains, Taman Turner is producing our program today. Anthony Smith, who's always behind the camera, and Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. That's our crew. Day one of the Big 12 today, Big 12 radio strike. And by strike, I mean a very amicable process that all of us went through to decide collectively as a team that we will be doing the show remote today and probably tomorrow before we can get some things sorted out in terms of our Big 12 Today studios. Win totals for Big 12 football teams via BetMGM here in about 15 minutes. And then Trey Wallace is our other guest in this first hour, the senior national college sports reporter for Outkick and Fox. But Ari, good morning, sir. A happy belated Father's Day to you both. How was the weekend?
Yeah, happy Father's Day to you, James. It was great. Just got back late last night from a long drive up to Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, dropping our oldest son off at overnight camp. So that was fun. Good timing. What about you? I see you got really into the World Cup this weekend.
Oh, dude, couldn't stop watching. Couldn't stop watching the World Cup. What did you think of the Ozarks?
Yeah, I mean it's a good spot. Awfully pretty, kind of surprisingly pretty, I guess you could say. Not exactly Maine beauty, but not crazy far off. And it was good. It's always fun to kind of drive through Big 12 country, get a good sense of it. And it's funny too because that area used to be almost exclusively Big 12 country, and it's not anymore. But you drive up from Dallas through Oklahoma up to Missouri. It's a good drive, good 7.5 hours.
Yeah, it's a hike. Well, I'm glad they didn't lock you in a dungeon because you were nervous about going back to the state of Missouri wearing your Kansas crimson and blue.
A
But
lot
it
more
is
chaos there than you'd anticipate. So basically, the Ozarks are the playground, the vacation playground for people from St. Louis and Kansas City. It feels like if you're from anywhere else, it's like they look at you like you're crazy. Like, why would you come here from Texas? So
totally.
everybody there is either from St. Louis or Kansas City. Everybody.
So, so did you guys get to explore much of the lake or the lake
Oh yeah.
area?
Oh yeah. We did lots of exploratory, lots to explore.
Yeah. So the last time I was at the lake of the Ozarks, I was probably in like my mid to late 20s, and I forgot about this when you were telling me you were going up there. So I got super into just riding around on a jet ski because the lake is massive. I mean, it
Yes.
is a ginormous lake. And when you're on a jet ski and you're going underneath that bridge, it feels like the Golden Gate. It's just huge. So I went up there with a buddy of mine, and a coworker of his had a lakefront property. So I'm riding around on this jet ski feeling like if Jesus was a gas powered engine, he'd be my Suzuki 500. Okay, like I'm riding the wake and just coasting across that water, feeling super confident. Well, I'm out there by myself, and I ventured way too far from the house that we were staying at. And if you don't have like a good sense of where you're at, it's very easy to get lost. So I go out on this jet ski and I start to panic. I have no idea where I am. All of the homes, and it's a very wooded lake. There's a lot of tree lines. It's not easy to even see the property. So I don't know. I'm looking for various landmarks that I didn't identify before I got out on the water. All the coves are looking the same. I have no idea where I am.
Okay, this is frightening.
It, it was.
I'm really
It
glad you didn't tell me this before I went.
don't rent a jet ski if you don't know where you are.
Yeah.
Like I go from having the time of my life to a stage 5 meltdown. Like I'm thinking this is where it ends. When I run out of gas, I don't have a phone. I don't know where I am. Have you seen people that are partying on boats? They're not exactly in rescue friendly mode. So the best part, I eventually found my way back. Long story short, but I get back to the house and come to find out, everybody at the house, they can see me. I can't see them. So the entire time, they just think, man, James is really just loving that water. He is having the time of his life as I just zip back and forth about every 20 minutes.
So you were a lot closer to the house than you thought. You just were freaking out because you thought you were not very close.
Exactly. Yeah, they could see me the entire time. They're like, is he running some jet ski obstacle course? Like, what? This isn't Gran Turismo 7. Like, what is he doing out there? And I'm thinking, this is where it ends. I'm going to die on this water.
So it's funny you say that because we were at this resort and by the way, they're building this like insanely huge Marriott resort right across the street from where we were staying that has like you could tell like they're building the tracks for a roller coaster. Like apparently it's a 400 room resort with multiple roller coasters and an indoor water park is apparently being built and erected and will be built in the next 6 months apparently. But where I was staying across the street from there, also on the lake, but on the other side, I mean, yeah, you're in a pool and you're just hearing jet skis and jet skis just zip by, and that's like the greatest advertisement for renting a jet ski that's ever possible because you just can't watch somebody on a jet ski and not want to get on one yourself. It's impossible.
Totally. Well, did you guys? So,
I did not rent a jet ski.
okay. The one thing that I used to love about the Ozarks was everything was very mom and pop.
Yeah,
So it
still.
almost like to hear that they're building this mega resort that's going
Yeah.
to be super modern is just like nails on a chalkboard.
Well, and I bet it took many years and many votes and everything else for it to get done because you're right. It was the first thing you notice as you drive around is like these are not like a bunch of big business operation resorts. For the most part, there's a Margaritaville resort out there, which probably was the first, but like for the most part, yeah, it's like just a bunch of mom and pop shops. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a really neat area, and I love that about it. You know what else is there?
The only thing is, it's like then you wake up and you're like, oh, but I'm in Missouri. Oh,
Yes, very much so. Very much so. It definitely has that feel, for better or for worse. Um, Link Academy is there too. That like 5-star brand new basketball powerhouse. It's just a couple of miles from the lake, and it sits like right on the edge of Branson. Um, so it's growing, no doubt about it.
yeah, no, it's it's fun for my kid who gets to go to camp, overnight camp for the first time ever. He's away for 2 weeks now, so it'll be a lot of fun. And yeah, it was a good experience with the family to be out there, and again, it kind of felt like it was like again bizarre, like oh, you're from Dallas, like that's why would you come vacation here? This is really where Kansas City and St. Louis people vacation. It's like oh, okay, I just we're dropping our kid off a camp, all good.
They were looking for your cowboy hat.
Yeah, or like basically like go somewhere better. It was kind of the
Yep.
shit I got. Like,
Yeah.
like I can and will. We wanted to experience this one. And it's interesting because it's like no matter where you go, there's always like whether it's a real lake or a man-made lake, like or it's the ocean, like no matter where you go, there's always going to be like those types of boating communities, like lake ocean communities, and it's just cool because it's like you think about living in Florida or California, places that are very close to oceans and water. And I'm not trying to compare lakes and oceans, in terms of like fun to do on the water, but like no matter where you go, I mean, I think growing up, if you would have said like, oh yeah, there's great lakes in Missouri, I'd have been like, what?
Oh, absolutely.
Or Oklahoma, and then you drive through, and you're like, wow, these are some gorgeous lakes.
Yes, Oklahoma's the one that gets me. I didn't know that Oklahoma even had a pocket like it
Yes,
does down
yes.
there in what would be the southeast corner or the northeast corner of the state. And you drive through it to get to Arkansas or to get to the Ozarks up in Missouri. And all of a sudden, it's not Oklahoma. It's this thriving metropolis of nature and lakes and hills and mountains. And you're like, what in the French is this?
Where did I end up?
All right, what'd you watch this weekend? I got really into the World Cup and the U.S. Open, although I'm a little bit confused about our coach, the U.S. coach. He looks less like a soccer coach and more like he's about to lead a rebellion. He has major Russell Crowe vibes to him. Haircut, same. Like whatever Maximus would do is all I can think about every time they pan to our coach.
Pochettino, he's great. Yeah, that's a good call. He does look a lot like Russell Crowe. There's a lot of Russell Crowe to him.
It's like this guy looks like somebody that I'm like, oh my God, is that Russell Crowe? Gladiator, extra time.
Just name the Russell Crowe movie, and then you can assign Mauricio Pochettino to that. It's been
Totally.
fun. It's been a good ride. Hopefully they continue.
So we beat Australia over the weekend, and I saw that this is usually kind of the round, the knockout stage that we get knocked out. But our schedule is light. Somebody said it's basically like Notre Dame's football schedule. Toughest games are at the front, and then it's just a cupcake the rest of the way.
The toughest game you could argue is Paraguay, the first game. But yeah, I mean the group we got was a pretty good draw with Australia, Paraguay, and Turkey because I mean, I'm pretty sure we've already clinched at least the round of 32, and with at least a tie against Turkey, we could clinch the group itself, which is huge. But yeah, I mean, the issues have been for the U.S. In the knockout rounds. But with that being said, it's always been a struggle to even get out of the group, even to score goals, and so it feels like it's been already an extremely successful World Cup just based on the fact that like usually the U.S. is sweating out like 1-0 games here, and at least the U.S. is creating some separation in these games that they're competing.
Yeah, all of the like the different cultures and crowds. And I'm sitting there and like after the US game, it's Haiti against Brazil. And I just could not wrap my mind around what was going through the minds of those Haiti soccer players. Like they come from Haiti. They're growing up sharing a soccer ball with 40 kids, right? And they've never seen anything like a stadium that they're playing in or a crowd like that. Like it's just remarkable. Those are the type of stories I can really get behind. Like the U.S. is cool. Yeah, it's awesome. Whatever. But these really small, like mom and pop countries that are just baller soccer players, it's insane.
Cape Verde, they got an incredible tie last night, 2-2 with Uruguay, which is humongous for them. The nation of Cape Verde, which we only found out was referred to as Verde based on Anthony Smith, our producer, whose cousins are from Cape Verde.
It's a small world, but it's also really big. It's a big place. How about the U.S. Open? Did you watch any of the U.S. Open over the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always good to watch a Sunday major. And I mean, congratulations to the 2014 Big 12 Golfer of the Year, Wyndham Clark, who spent a couple of years at Oklahoma State before transfer to Oregon. Oklahoma State, one of the best golf programs in the nation, had the national champion in Preston Stout this year. And how about Wyndham Clark getting his second U.S. Open championship?
Did you see some fans got ejected, removed from the course, whatever you want to call it, for heckling him?
Yes.
I
Apparently,
just
nobody in Long Island wanted Wyndham Clark to win.
and
Everybody
I
wanted Scotty Scheffler because Scheffler, it's the career Grand Slam. It's the one he does not have. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
I'm back. You guys hear me?
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, why do people so it was more people wanted to see Scheffler versus like actually disliking Wyndham Clark because that's the part that I couldn't understand.
Well, and I mean, you don't usually see that in golf a ton, right? I mean, it's rare that in golf you would see there be that kind of, animosity towards a golfer. Like normally it's pretty basic in terms of an environment. Like there's just not a lot of I wouldn't say there's a ton of cheering, just not a lot of like cheering against, it feels like. And yeah, it was bizarre to hear. And even Wyndham Clark said after the fact, like it was kind of weird. Like he guessed he recognized that he wanted most of them to, most people wanted Scheffler to win, but man, it was just pretty funny.
Yeah, he's like, why are people hating me? Well, what have I done? Like, this is a guy that kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, he definitely wasn't a favorite, but like his backstory is fascinating. So he starts playing golf. He grew up in Denver, right? So he starts playing golf at age 3. His dad tells him he won't buy him a PlayStation until he makes eagle. So Clark, at age 6, he sinks a hole in one on a 125-yard par 3 at 6 years old. And he ends up he went to the same high school as Christian McCaffrey. They're like 2 years apart. So he goes to Oklahoma State, but then you see that he transferred to Oregon. You noted that. And it's like, okay, why? Well, when he was at Oklahoma State, his mom died of breast cancer. And like he really struggled with it. Him and his mom were super close. He's been super outspoken about the therapy that he's been to and how he's had to kind of work through that. So he actually like took some time off from golf entirely. He didn't play for like 2 years. So there's a gap between his transfer from Oklahoma State to Oregon and then to where he is now. Like those are the type of stories I can really get behind.
Yeah, no, and it's always fun Father's Day weekend for the U.S. Open. There's always great stories, that come out of it through the championship. And look, Wyndham Clark was cruising the final day, and then ended up with some decent drama there. And it's always funny to see like you see golf scores over the course of the year, and guys are like at 30 under, 25 under in a tournament. And for this one, it feels like most years of the U.S. Open, the course is so difficult that guys that Gary Woodland finished tied for 10th at +1. It's just, normally that's not going to get you in the fifth top 15 or top 20 or even top 30 of the leaderboard. But the U.S. Open, it does. So congrats to a lot of former Big 12 golfers on a really successful U.S. Open.
Yeah, dude, that course was gnarly. All right, he's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. This is
You a
Big 12
golfer,
today.
James? I don't know why I never thought you were a golfer.
Like, am I a golfer in terms of do I play?
Yeah?
I have not picked up a golf club in probably 3 years. I would like to. In fact, probably 8 or 9 years ago, I got obsessed with it. And I'm like, I want to be good at this sport. I took a couple of lessons. I was going every day. We had trade with a local, not really country club, kind of like the poor man's country club. I don't know what you would call it. It had a gym and a clubhouse and all the things. So I would play after work like every day. I'd
Or
go play 9 holes.
country club.
Yeah, it wasn't actually a country club.
Was it just a golf course?
Well, it was more than that because like it had a full like fitness center and it had like a fully stocked clubhouse. Like it just felt it had a pool. I mean, it was like a country club without the country club name tag. So, anyways, I got decent, but I never really got good enough to where I wasn't embarrassed every time I teed off on the first hole and had a bunch of people watching. So then I finally just threw in the towel. I said that it's just not going to happen for me.
Yeah, I'm sort of there, but haven't made that official announcement. I guess is the best way to say it.
Then I think we should go.
Yeah, I got to get clubs first.
That would be a good start.
Yeah, yeah, would be a good start.
You could,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'd let you use mine, but they're K State bag. So it's like I was part of the team
You would. And you were.
in many different ways. T Chain's you a golfer?
I am not a golfer. I don't think I've only golf I've ever done is Top Golf, and I was terrible.
Can
You
I
were
tell you
bad
that
at you
one
were
of the
bad
more,
at Top Golf.
I
one of
am
the
bad
more
at Top Golf. Yes.
one of the more disappointing things in life is when people that are really excited about golf ask you about if do you play golf? Because like and maybe not even people that are excited about it, but like sometimes it's like one of those small talk questions, like, oh, do you play golf? It's like, oh no. Then they don't know where to go from there. Like, okay. Most people just say yes or they enjoy it. Most guys enjoy and play golf. So it's funny, like disappointing somebody because it's like, yeah, I don't really play.
Well,
Sorry.
and guys that play golf love to talk about playing golf.
Yep.
So when you shut that down, there's nowhere to go.
Is it true that it's more about like having a good time with your friends and pounding Modelo's and then the golf is the second half? Because I've heard that.
Yes.
I would say yes, but like you can't suck because like there's a pace of play that's involved, and nothing is more humiliating than being so bad that you have to wait for the group behind you to come and tee off and go in front of you. And then if it's crowded, that can mess up the group behind them. Like you have to be decent.
Yes, correct.
Got
That's
it.
what I say about it. All right, so 0 for 3 on the golf. Trey Wallace, our senior national college sports reporter for Outkick and Fox, is with us later on this hour. But coming up next, the BetMGM win totals for Big 12 football teams are all over the board. We'll break those down. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling, and this is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio.
Jackson's in trouble now. David Bailey, he is a sack machine.
Back inside Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, powered by our good friends at Modelo. Trey Wallace will be with us here in just a moment from Outkick and Fox in about 15 to go over the latest on the Protect College Sports Act. And then the NBA draft is tomorrow night. And so we'll preview that in hour number 2. He's Ari Timken on social at Ari Sports, ARI Sports. I'm James Westling on social at James Westling. And this is the first show that we've done in quite some time where all of us have been remote. Full transparency, I am not well. I am struggling. I don't know how to end a sentence. I don't know if you're done speaking. I'm talking all over you guys, and so I apologize in advance. Hopefully it gets better throughout the course of the program.
That's okay, James. We forgive you.
Full stop. There it is. Everybody else is doing great, it sounds like. Loving the new setup.
Oh, yeah, this is all just you for sure. No, I mean, it's way better to be in person. It's way more fun. It's way better. But yeah, we've got to make do with what we've got, and we've got a lot of great things to talk about. So that's what's most important.
All right. Did you see these Bet MGM win totals for the Big 12? So Texas Tech, their over-under is 11.5. So you are betting on Texas Tech to run the table. But then where they have, and more so maybe than like the actual number, is where they have some of these teams positioned. The second most wins projected in the Big 12 is a tie between Utah, BYU, and Kansas State at 8.5. And then it's Houston and Arizona at 7.5, followed by TCU and Arizona State at 6.5. Like, my first thought looking at this is outside of Texas Tech and probably Utah, everybody else, it feels way too low, their win total number over under.
So a couple of observations, and I think, you just sort of hit on it there, James. But last year, there was a less of a spread between the bottom and the top, meaning, I want to say like Texas Tech was at like 10.5 wins last year for its total, and like the bottom was 5.5 or something. So from 11.5 to 4.5 seems more significant than what it was last year. So I think that speaks to, maybe less of a league that's harder to pick and more of a league that's easier to figure out. Now, with that being said, 3 teams at 8.5, including the team in BYU that many expect to be potentially towards the top of the conference, is surprising. K-State at 8.5 is surprising. And yeah, I think there's some locks in here for overs and probably some locks for the under as well.
Yeah, I would say like BYU just continues to be smothered by disrespect at 8.5. This is a team that went 12-2, and the year before they go 11-2, and they have, outside of the wide receiver position, pretty much their entire team back from last year's team that won 12 games. Now, these are regular season win totals, so BYU, they went 10-2, or I'm sorry, they went 11-1 in the regular season. But how about Houston and Arizona at 7.5 when Houston ends up with a 10-win season? Arizona ends up with a 9-win season. They had 9 wins going into their bowl game that they lost to SMU. Like, those two seem really sneaky low to me.
What are your locks here?
My number one lock is BYU. So if we had $100 to spend on this, I'd probably slam like a quarter of it on BYU because I think Notre Dame's a coin flip game. They don't have Texas Tech on their schedule. I'm not sure that they lose more than 1 or 2. Like, their floor to me is 9 wins, which is still above this 8.5 number. So that's my number one lock. What is your number one lock?
Mine would be Arizona. It's the softest number on the board relative to market price. For hit the over, you get plus 115. So 7.5 to me for Arizona seems like an easy over. And then on top of that, you're getting free money there at plus 115 on it, which means again you bet $1 to win $1.15. So, or normally in those cases you'd get more of the juice for the over. In this case, the under is minus 145. So the better bet is the over.
Okay, so Arizona is your number one. If you had $100, how confident are you in how much of that would be allotted to your Arizona pick?
I would probably put $30 of my 100 on Arizona.
Okay, that's a good chunk. And then after that, where do you go?
Probably put some money on BYU. I also, like you, agree that 8.5 seems outrageous for a team that's, 9 wins would be a huge disappointment for them the last couple of years, and that's for that to be the floor seems like a really good bet. I like the over for Colorado at 4.5. You get plus 115 again on that, so better money on it. And then, again, like I know we've talked a ton about Colorado, but I like the go Brennan Marion offense paired with Julian Lewis, and then they brought in DeAndre Moore and Danny Scudero from San Jose State. So for me, Colorado hitting the over at 4.5, I think that's a bowl team this year. Is another lock for me.
The second team that I would probably identify would be Arizona State at 6.5. I see Arizona State's floor at 7-5. Like they go 8-5 last year and 8-4 in the regular season. Remember, they lost their bowl game to Duke in a thriller with their backup quarterback without Jordan Tyson most of the year. Like I think Kenny Dillingham has proven over the last two and now
Yeah.
really even 3 seasons, because a lot of the guys from his first team were with him for that second team. Like he has shown that he has an eye for portal fit and talent and how it fits within his system. So Arizona State at 6.5 is where I would go next. So if I'm putting 25 on BYU, I'd put another 25 on Arizona State. So I've spent half of my $100 on those two teams.
Anybody that you think is locked to hit the under?
Yes. And it's the two teams. There are two that just jump off this graphic to me. It's the two teams that we had in our consensus 16th and 15th in the league, Cincinnati and Iowa State. They're both at 5.5. So essentially, outside of Colorado, this has West Virginia, Oklahoma State, UCF, Kansas, Iowa State, and Cincinnati all at 5.5, just under making a bowl. I would say half of those teams will make a bowl, and I think they've got the wrong half. I don't think Iowa State and Cincinnati are bowl teams this year.
Yeah, Iowa State's another one for me that I think is an under lock. Given just how much turnover they have, we've talked a ton about their roster. I mean, it's funny because you and I both have Iowa State and Cincinnati at the bottom of the league. They were Cincinnati was 16th in our consensus poll. We've got Iowa State at 15th. I had 16 for Iowa State and 15th for Cincinnati. So both you and I are on Cincinnati and Iowa State. They hit the under.
So not just this particular source, which is the Big 12 win totals from BetMGM, but like I was looking at the Sporting News and their Big 12 season preview, and Phil Steele has his out. And like a theme that I've noticed is this is an outlier with Texas Tech. They have Texas Tech at 11.5. But a lot of these other publications, they're really jumping off of the Texas Tech bandwagon, and I think that the market is going to overcorrect because of the Sorsby stuff. They'll have Will Hammond by week 3, week 4 at worst, and I think they're going to be just fine. I'll leave it at that with him at quarterback. And then the other team, like Kansas State, worries me a little bit. I've seen Kansas State way too high in way too many of these win total numbers, way too many of these preseason publications. They're like top 4 in the Big 12, and in this particular win total, I've seen them top 4 in several of the publications. One of them that I just noted there, like that is just, it's just making me a little bit nervous.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's Avery Johnson. I think it's
More so than
Avery
Colin
Johnson.
Klein?
And I think it's Colin Klein.
Yeah.
I think it's the combo. And then, and why I was, and still am, high on them this year, I don't know that I'm this high, is they had, I think, 4 or 5 of their 6 losses were all decided by less than like 6 points. And you think about, they throw a late game interception, a pick 6 against Baylor. They give that game away. They give up a 4th down, 50-yard run after they led the entire game at Utah. The Iowa State game week 0 was a coin flip game. Like every single one of their losses, they just made boneheaded mistakes down the stretch that if they correct those little things, maybe they are a 9 or a 10 win team.
All right, let me run through these, and you can give me an over and an under, and I'll say if I agree or disagree with you.
Okay.
Texas Tech, 11.5.
Under.
Yeah. That one seems like it's the only way it could go. Like that's just way too. They were 10.5 last year, I think. 11.5 is outrageous.
You take the over, they're running the table.
Yeah, right, right.
It's really hard to go undefeated in college football.
Utah 8.5.
I would take the under.
Under.
8-4.
Wow, you think Utah's in for a disappointing season, huh?
Yeah, I think I would call it that. I don't know what their expectations are. If their expectations are that they're going to be the exact same team they were last year with a new coach and a new defense, then yeah, I would say they are going to be somewhat disappointed.
BYU 8.5.
Over, bro.
Oh,
Over.
you just made Utah fans puke. Took Utah at the under and BYU fans the over. K-State over 8.5.
I lean under. I think 8-4.
Oh, all right, fine. I'll give
I
you
think 8-4.
Arizona 7.5.
Arizona and Houston, I like the over on both. 7.5. I think 8-4.
Yeah, I agree there. You got a lot of 8-4 teams here.
I do. Yeah.
Jordan League at 8-4.
Mm-hmm.
TCU, Arizona State, Baylor at 6.5. You taking the over on all three?
No, I take the over on TCU and Arizona State. I take the under on Baylor.
I agree with you there. Not sure on TCU, but we'll take the over on Arizona State, take the under on Baylor. West Virginia, Oklahoma State, UCF, Kansas, Iowa State, and Cincinnati all at 5.5.
Yeah, this is where we'll probably have some discrepancies. I take the over on West Virginia. I take the under on Oklahoma State. I take the under on UCF. I take the over on Kansas and the under on Iowa State and Cincinnati.
Okay, so under on Oklahoma State at 5.5.
Their schedule is gnarly, and they're the team that I'm bringing to the table today for the consensus that I had. I think I had them 10th, and today we're on, what, spot 10 or 11, Taman?
9.
9.
We're on 9. Okay.
Yeah, officially we've got Cincinnati at 16, Iowa State at 15, Kansas 14, UCF 13, Baylor 12, West Virginia 11, Colorado at 10.
Okay. So I will introduce Oklahoma State at 9. My concern is their schedule, which we can get into that later. All right. How do you feel about those?
I think the over on Oklahoma State. I think the under on West Virginia. I think the over on UCF, under on Kansas, under on Iowa State, under on Cincinnati.
I think we're probably both over on Colorado at 4.5.
Yes, that's one of my locks.
That feels like a lock. Totally agree. All right, we'll see what Trey Wallace thinks. He is the senior national college sports reporter for Outkick and Fox. He has been all over this Protect College Sports Act and what it could mean for the future of college football. He'll have all the updates around the corner. We are brought to you, the full-time fan, by Modelo. You're listening to us on TuneIn and watching us on Big 12 Studios.
Shoulder fade. Was that caught? It was! Caleb Douglas. Look at what he found. Morton the other way. Pass corralled by Douglas. A first down and another big play. There goes Douglas. Inside the 25. He's been a big play machine. A gain of 43 more.
Final 30 seconds of the quarter. Second down throw to the end zone. Douglas. Touchdown, Texas Tech. What a drive.
Morton long throw to the sideline, and the catch is made. Another missed tackle, and Douglas is free inside the 20 and inside the 15.
14 touches, almost 90 yards. Back shoulder fade. Was that caught? It was! Caleb Douglas. Look at what he found.
Baron Morton wants another touchdown for the road, and he's got it for Douglas, who finds his own camera on a touchdown.
We are Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, heard exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, and we welcome in Trey Wallace, the senior national college sports reporter for Outkick and Fox, and he has been our go-to guy to make sense of this Protect College Sports Act. Trey, welcome to the show. Good to see you again. How was your weekend?
Guys, it was good. It was good. Got to enjoy a little college baseball. The College World Series going on. We get a Game 3 tonight, which is fantastic. And then, just sat around, watched a little NASCAR, and enjoyed the weekend. It was good to kind of close the computer just for a minute, even though the phone wouldn't shut off. So it's all good.
Yeah. So more NASCAR than U.S. Open?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was following it. I guess I was following on social with Wyndham, with the U.S. Open, and I tuned in probably for the last two holes. But I was focused, mainly on a NASCAR race on a naval base. Like, it was wild. So it was a lot of fun, wondering if the cars are going to go into the ocean. So that was a fun afternoon. But Wyndham, my goodness, what a day for him. Dude,
you got to share with us the NASCAR stuff that you were just telling us during the break.
Okay, yeah. So if Wallace and me, and if I'm talking about NASCAR, sounds familiar, or if I get a little over exuberant on social media, sometimes I do try to hide it. Sometimes Bubba Wallace, that's my first cousin, so I have a vested interest in how he does. So you got to get on the good side too if you want to go to one of the races. So it's a lot of fun, and I was happy to see him go from 39th. He hates road courses. So, and he's getting better at them, but he really hates them. So for him to go from 39th, because literally he had a wheel come off in turn 9, to all of a sudden finishing second, I was like, okay, bud. Like that we were texting in the group after the race. We're like, a lot of things I can't share on here. But it was a good day. So happy for him, and especially when it came on Father's Day.
Pretty cool. Obviously, Trey, we've been following the Protect College Sports Act. I'm of the belief, kind of like the other ones, it's just in a really difficult spot in order to get through. But just give us a sense here of what this week means for that bill and its passage.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is where we stood at. One of the things after it got through the Commerce hearing last week on a 19-9 vote was Randy Levine and Cody Campbell got on a conference call with about 9 of us. I think there was probably 9 of us on there. And essentially, Randy Levine and Cody Campbell was doing this too, was going after the SEC and the Big Ten and saying, look, you tried to nuke our bill before we had a vote on it. Now, do you guys want to come aboard? Let's talk about this practically, and let's sit down and discuss ways you all can get involved. And I think, to me, that stood out the most. Like, besides the fact that the hearing went for like an hour last week, when I was prepped for about 4 hours, so I drank a little bit too much coffee thinking it was going to go 4. I look at it, and there were a number of things that, the SEC and the Big Ten wanted, I guess. There was a number of things that the congressional side wanted. There was not a lot of give and take. And I think looking at it this week, judging by the comments from Randy Levine, the Yankees president, who essentially just came out and said, and everybody's using this phrase in some form or the other. It's 4th down. This is our last attempt. We got to do it now, or it's never going to get done. It's like, okay, enough with the puns. Like, we get it. And we get you're going on recess in August, speaking about Congress, and you got to get this thing passed before the midterms and whatnot. But that's your fault for having this thing play out in a span of, hey, we really need to get it to the floor within 3 weeks to vote on it. And I think, look, to kind of wrap up that part of the question is, there's a lot of verbiage in this bill that the SEC and the Big Ten want to have input on. And I think when you saw the presidents and chancellors of those conferences come out last week or last Thursday and say, hey, look, we had a 30-minute conference call with you guys. We really only got to speak for 10 minutes. I think it just goes to show you how kind of far apart they are on some of the concessions. But, if you're the Big 12 and the ACC, they threw in a stipulation. It essentially dropped from $1 billion in revenue when it comes to a potential super conference, and I hate even to say that, or even breaking off to $700 million. Well, what that did was it just threw the all the P4 conferences into one boat together. And I think to me that's what stood out the most, if I'm being honest.
So what can you expand on that anti-expansion provision? Does this essentially eliminate the possibility of any conferences expanding in the future, or like what does that ultimately mean?
Yeah, I think I talked to a couple of aides about this and senators and a few conference commissioners to try to get clarity, because they threw that in on Wednesday night and the hearing was on Thursday. And so essentially break it down. This is, okay, ACC Big 12, if you're bringing in this amount of revenue as a whole per year, you cannot either form together. What they're doing is, okay, here's what they're doing. The pooling of media rights. They're saying here in this situation, hey, you can't break off and do your own thing, but you can join up with others and pool your media rights together and have that revenue go toward, and you can break off that revenue, whatever deal you come up with, like the ACC's deal doesn't end until 2036. The Big 12, next 5-6 years, you have an opportunity there. So you can't go off and do your own. You can't form a super. So the ACC and the Big 12 can't join together, but you can join your media rights together. So that part kind of stood out to me as like, no, if Brett Yormark and the Big 12 want to go out and add 4, 5, 6, 7 teams to their conference to make them bigger and better, that's their prerogative. Like you can't tell them, no, you're not able to run your company. And I think to me, that's the problem that, I have looking at this, and I know it's the problem that commissioners around the country have. And then what you're also doing is you're saying, hey, SEC, Big Ten, you can't go raid the ACC. Like long been the plan. So I'm sure Clemson and Florida State, who ended up suing their conference 2 years ago, are like, whoa, wait a minute. Like we wanted an opportunity to get out. So there's a lot of different layers to this. But in reality, what it is no super conferences, which I'm so sick and tired of hearing that term, because both commissioners have said, hey, look, we're not going to form a super conference to take away from each the SEC or the Big Ten. It's a scare tactic, guys. That's what it is. And I don't know how far that thing actually goes.
Is there any way the SEC and the Big Ten would approve this bill?
They're going to have to figure out, and when I say they, Cantwell and Cruz are going to have to figure out a way to get them to the table that can satisfy them enough, whether that, they're going to have better verbiage when it comes to the voluntary pooling of media rights. There are many, I'm not a lawyer, but I read that thing. I'm not a congressional, I'm not a senator, whatever. I read it and I was like, they keep saying voluntary, but there's a percentage mark that could make this thing very dicey if they got, let's just say Notre Dame was persuaded by the Big 12 and the ACC or whatnot to come aboard. And it's like, all right, well, there's antitrust exemptions in this. There's lawyers. Ted Cruz wanted to threaten. I mean, nothing against him. This is just how senators and representatives act. But, they're wanting to threaten. Well, if they even try, they're going to be sued and it'll never get off the ground. I think overall right now, if they're going to get both of them to the table, I don't know how much they can amend this bill, guys. I mean, we just went through the markup phase here. So you're going to have to give something to the SEC and the Big Ten. But I'll be honest with y'all, it doesn't feel like at the moment that both of those conferences want to join the party. And if they don't, I don't think this thing even makes it through the Senate. And I'm not trying to make them out to be the good guys. Oh my goodness, we're saving this for college sports is not federally, ruled over. But at the same time, like I do look at the Big 12 and the ACC and the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, and I do realize something has to be done if these conferences are going to create revenue in 5-6 years.
Trey Wallace is with us from Fox and Outkick. And Trey, I'm reading the retweet you had from Danny White, the Tennessee AD. He's referencing the NBA and the NFL. What's his stance and what's your take on it?
Yeah, he wants collective bargaining. And the biggest thing is when you see these ADs get on social media, it's like, okay, they're sending a message here to everyone. And I don't care, which AD and which conference that is, you have to take all that into consideration, or you have to at least read it because they're trying to send a message. And I think that Danny White has been someone I follow from afar that he is all in on collective bargaining. He has been talking about it for 2 years. Like, I give him credit. He hasn't steered away from his convictions on it. He thinks collective bargaining is the way to go. But I look at that and what they were doing is what he was kind of saying is there an entity or a league right now that's being ran by someone that you can have outside control? And he referenced Major League Soccer as one, as okay, this is a league that is separate, run by different entities. I'm not saying there's private equity in that, but how can it be enforced? And so he referenced MLS, and I was like, all right, well, that was actually pretty smart. Like, I get it. At the same time, Danny White is, he reports to the chancellor and president at Tennessee, and it's all about what is best for these schools. I've told folks this. Coaches' opinions don't matter. Athletic directors, somewhat, yes, but at the end of the day, you're having to get these presidents and chancellors involved in making these tough decisions for these schools, and I'm very curious to see where it goes this week because it's pretty contentious right now between all sides.
So Ted Cruz had it at like 60-40 odds that it gets passed, and then he got it down to 50. Like, what is it now?
I think it's you said 70-30. I think it's switched up now. I think it's 30-70. I mean, I'm trying to be optimistic about something, but the problem is it's the time frame, guys. Like, I'll be honest with you. If this bill would have been presented in April and you had 4 or 5 months to talk about it, discuss it, get it through, okay, here we go. There's an opportunity. But this thing is ready on June 21st, and in reality, they have about 28 days. Mm-hmm. And by the way, they have to vote on it too. If they don't get it done by then, guys, it's not getting done because these congressional leaders are more worried about midterms than they are college athletics. And that's just the blunt reality. And you know what? Good. I need to figure out what's going on in my everyday life too. I'm not, my gas prices and my grocery bill has nothing to do with college athletics. So that's fine. If you don't pass it in 3 to 4 weeks, move on and go figure out how to get the country in order.
Yeah, really well said. Trey, man, you're always so generous with your time. We love having you on. We appreciate you, and I'm sure we'll be catching up here shortly.
Guys, have a wonderful week. Thanks for having me.
Take care, Trey.
See you, Trey.
Thank you.
Trey Wallace, fantastic from Outkick and Fox, covers sports at the national level. He is our go-to guy when it comes to the Protect College Sports Act. All right, coming up next, so the NBA draft is tomorrow. We've got a bunch of Big 12 players expected to go in the first round, up to as many as 9 or 10. And then we'll also look at returning production for Big 12 basketball teams with the draft in mind. Quite surprising, this list, before Eric Bailey is our hour number 2 guest, the Oklahoma State beat writer for the Tulsa World, because we are inching closer to the consensus where we try to lock in the preseason 9th-ranked team in the Big 12 Conference. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo.
And Sam Levitt on the move, completes the pass. There's Mateer, the tight end, and into the end zone for an ASU touchdown. Siobhan Mateer.
Levitt rolling out, throwing to the end zone. Touchdown, Mateer.
To go until halftime. Levitt will throw short to the tight end. There he goes. Touchdown, Sun Devils. Mateer, 16 yards, and it's 20-0. This one down the seam for a touchdown. Shimon Mateer with an 18-yard score.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Later on, we break down the consensus. We are trying to lock in the 9th place team in the Big 12 preseason football Big 12 Today poll. We're up to number 9. Ari, you have Colorado today.
TCU, we already locked in Colorado at 10.
TCU. Oh, the Horned Frogs. Now, is 9th place higher or lower than you had them with your initial poll?
9th is where I have them.
Oh, man, you're going to be dialed in to TCU at number 9. I'll bring Oklahoma State to the table today, but the NBA draft is tomorrow night. So the Big 12 had 8 of the top 25 players in last year's recruiting class sign and play for Big 12 schools. All 8 of those players are one and done in this draft, highlighted by DeBonsa and Darren Peterson. The Big 12 has like 5 of the top 10 prospects for the 2026 recruiting class, just as strong as they were a year ago. In terms of Peterson and DeBonsa, I think the one like new development with the NBA draft that could impact not necessarily those two guys, but all the guys projected to go anywhere from 5 to the end of the first round is the Giannis trade rumors. Does that happen before tomorrow night? And what could that potentially mean for Big 12 players and their potential movement in tomorrow night's draft?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's funny because it all it all goes to tomorrow night. I mean, we've been talking about 1 and 2 for DeBonsa and Peterson all year, man. I mean, think about that. We've been talking about this all year. And when it started, it was, oh, it'll definitely be Darren Peterson. Will DeBonta definitely be two? And it's now shifted to quite the opposite. I mean, it has gone from it will definitely be Peterson number one, will DeBonta be two, to it's definitely going to be DeBonta number one, will Peterson go number two?
So what do you think the percentages are that it's Peterson?
Well, do you have the Vegas odds?
Not in front of me. I'm just curious for your opinion. Like, would you say it's 75-25 DeBonsa, just in terms of perception?
I think it's 50-50. I think it's 50-50. What about you?
I'd probably go 60-40 DeBonsa.
I mean, it does feel like there's just a ton of momentum for DeBonsa to be number one, but I guess I'll believe it when I see it. There's a lot of noise, but it still, at the end of the day, feels like Peterson should be the number one pick.
Well, and like Washington, as many boneheaded trades as they've made over the years, give them credit for how they've handled this. Like they have been quiet. They have treated everybody as equals when it comes to DeBonsa and Peterson and Boozer and the pre-draft process. Like it has been a masterclass on how to operate as the number one overall pick in a year that is absolutely loaded. This isn't the Anthony Bennett draft. This is a stacked draft. And so they've been quiet. Here's what A.J. DeBonsa said about doing physical workouts or lack thereof for NBA teams.
I don't work out for none. I just visited the cities. Excuse me? That's tough right there. Just visit the city? Mm-hmm. Take me to the facility. They take me to, dinner, talk. I'm going to work out. So that's the off-the-court stuff. Yeah, they know what I can do.
So DeBonsa's saying he didn't do any physical workouts for NBA teams. If you're an NBA team, are you putting A.J. DeBonsa through a physical workout? I think I've seen everything I need to see.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess I'd wonder, what do you see in a physical workout that you can't see in the tape? Right? I mean, that to me is the biggest question. Is what would be the need to see, to see somebody physically work out before you draft them, as opposed to just putting on the tape. And it feels like with DeBonsa, like put on the tape. And I mean, this dude was not only playing at a high level, but playing the majority of the minutes through the majority of these games. And that, like, honestly, if you're going to take DeBonsa number one overall, that's the reason to do it. And the reason not to take Peterson is for that exact reason. Like, you're taking two guys that have played a totally different amount of minutes and games in their first and only year playing college basketball.
The fact also that these guys are all guards, like there's not really a post player outside of Caleb Wilson that's in the conversation. I mean, Boozer's 6'10", yes, but he can step outside. But like it's DeBonsa, it's Peterson, and then outside of those two outliers, it's Darius Acuff Jr. and Braden Burries and Kingston Flemings and Keaton Wagler and Mikal Brown Jr. The field of 68, they asked 10 NBA executives to rank like all of the other guards. They had Mikal Brown Jr. with the most votes, and then it was Acuff, Burries, and Flemings. Flemings is the one that's really fascinating to me because I've seen him as high as number 5. I've seen him as low as like number 11. So where he goes is probably one of my top storylines, maybe even more so than DeBonsa and Peterson, because we know those guys are going to go 1 and 2. If one of them didn't go 1 or 2, that would obviously be the top story. But let's hear what Kingston Flemings said about. He told teams that they need to listen to his coach, Kelvin Sampson, who's going to actually join us later on during the show today.
Yeah, coaches always believes in me. That's why I went there in the first place. He's hard on me every single day, but at the end of the day, it's all behind love. So he believes in me, so of course I'm going to believe in myself. But I think people should listen to Coach Sampson.
Because Coach Sampson doesn't usually believe in freshmen.
Well, I'm really excited to visit with Kelvin Sampson today to get this question, and to figure out like what. I mean, this is a guy that's coached a lot of freshmen, especially in different decades. Like, what's different about Kingston? He may not be the best freshman that he's ever coached. Maybe he is. But I'd just be very curious, especially because Sampson has seen the way in which kids have changed or maybe haven't changed over the years. So I think he'd be a great study for this.
And usually freshmen, they don't want to work that hard.
Right.
Like, you can be a hard worker and still not hit the benchmark that Kelvin Sampson demands. Here's what Fleming said about just why he loved playing for Coach Sampson.
I just like playing with coaches that push me. He's not gonna let me have any off days or anything like that. So playing with someone like that who's coached the best, Coach Chris Paul, seen Magic Johnson, seeing players like that, he has so much behind in his brain. Just to be able to pick from that and learn from him is a great thing. And then he just every single day he's gonna bring it. So love playing with a coach like that.
And when these guys, like if I'm an NBA scout or GM, the talent to me is splitting hairs. Like, everybody's talented. The guys that show signs of hard work, discipline, willing to do the extra things, that's Kingston Fleming's. And I think that's a big reason why he's even in the discussion for being a top 5 pick.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that I think is at the crux of what all these teams are trying to figure out about each of these players, right? Is like, we know the talent is there. None of these guys would be in the conversation if they didn't have the talent to be there. But it's the separator, right? It's who are the guys, like the first guy in, last guy out kind of guys. And that's where, I go back to what we've been talking about when it comes to these interviews, where sometimes like the interviews are set up for the guys to give you the best version of themselves. So you're not necessarily getting the right answers and everything. And so I think for these organizations to try to figure out who are the guys that are going to put in the work to get that, to become great, because that's what that's about, right? I mean, there's plenty of talented players that can become good or even elite level talents, but the great players, ones that win championships, those are the ones that have the want to be great. And that's what every team at this time is trying to figure out, and trying to make sure that they don't take the guy that isn't going to put in the work, right? Is not, like, make sure that they are figuring out who is the guy that is definitely not going to be the one who I don't have to worry about putting in the extra work.
And I was reading an article about Fleming's, and his teammates were saying that he is the ultimate competitor. And we saw that in the way he plays, just his minutes per game, the 40 burger that he had against Texas Tech. Like, there's a lot of, I think, things to like about him as a player. Number one, his three-point shooting was way better than I realized from a pure percentage standpoint. He just didn't shoot a lot of threes. But his teammates were saying he's relentless in the way he competes, whether they're playing video games or table tennis on the road. He absolutely refuses to lose. That's a guy I want playing the point for my basketball team. So I'm starting to think, like, in terms of after DeBonsa and Peterson, he would be my top Big 12 guy, just in terms of, what you're going to get at the next level.
More so than Braden Burries?
Yeah, I think so. My concern with Burries, and I do think Burries is going to be a guy that, like, is a rock-solid starter. And you brought this up last week, and I thought it was a really good point, is he's only like 6'4", 6'5". What position is he playing? If he's playing the 2, he's considered an undersized 2. But the NBA has become a league where those guys can still be really successful.
Right.
But for Fleming's, like, what he is. He is a dynamic point guard that has a chance to evolve into like a Donovan Mitchell type. He's just a dog. Whereas with Burries, I don't know that his ceiling is as high.
Mm. Yeah, and look, I mean, I think no knock on Burries here, but just watching both Burries and Fleming's play, and Fleming's has kind of been the guy that's always stood out to me. Just his explosiveness, his physicality. I think the fact that he doesn't back down from anybody. And I'll be honest, like, not a knock on any other coach, but like the fact that you can handle playing for Kelvin Sampson says a lot to me, especially as a freshman. Like, that speaks volumes. When you consider, and maybe, this is even better for Burries, but when you consider that, Milos Uzan ran the point the majority of the season last year, and he was supplanted this year by a freshman because of the talent level, like, is that not the best endorsement for him, or what? I mean, Kingston Fleming's killed the draft status of Milos Uzan. In fact, I think somebody's going to end up with a really good player in the second round if that's how long he ends up going. And I think that just speaks to, one, Fleming's, but two, what his appearance did to Uzan this year.
Well, and like Kelvin Sampson's players, and I think this is a big recruiting tool that is really low key for Houston. All of the guys that he puts in the league, they make it in the league. Marcus Sasser is still bouncing around. LJ Cryer, who wasn't even drafted, is playing in the NBA. Francis is another one that didn't get drafted. He's in the league. Like you go down, like you pull up his NBA draftees or guys that didn't even get drafted but wanted to continue to pursue the NBA. Like he has a very underrated track record. So I'd look at Flemings and Chris Sinak as well. Like Sinak, he was inconsistent. But if he wasn't consistent in doing the little things, setting good screens, rebounding, avoiding foul, like all of that stuff, he would have been on the floor. And he was on the floor 30 minutes a game. All right, John Rothstein has his annual Big 12 returning scoring by percentage. TCU tops the list. 53.3% of their scoring is back. Iowa State, number 2. Colorado, 3. Arizona, 4. Iowa State loses their big 3 of Joshua Jefferson, Taman Lipsey, and Momcilovic, and they still have the second highest returning scoring in the Big 12. And Arizona loses everybody, and they still have a top 4 returning scoring by percentage. Does this say more about maybe we're overlooking the guys coming back for those teams, or is it just this era of, wow, these percentages are really low because everybody turns over their roster?
Well, I think in some ways there's important context here. Like Arizona is a really good case study in this, right? Because they bring back Krivas and Kerchenkov. So, I mean, they lose a ton of production and a ton of their scoring punch, but they're bringing back arguably their 2 most important players and guys that, have multiple years together within the system. So then, you add in the Manda Quaid and the Derek Dixon, to sort of supplant what you're losing, plus Caleb Holt and Cameron Holm, right? So to me, Arizona's the one where it's like, that's a bit deceiving. Some of these other ones, it's not deceiving at all. And then you have to go back to, okay, are they, they're losing some of their own roster continuity, but are they replacing them with guys that have played at the Power 5 level? That's what I'm most intrigued by is, all right, returning production for guys that were on your team last year. What about returning production, though, for P5 players, right? Because if we know that this guy can contribute at that level, then in some ways that makes them a returning player. That's how football does it. Basketball should too, because there's so much turnover in basketball.
Iowa State's returning production would be 97% if you include the transfers.
Yeah.
The amount of starts those guys have under their belts. Really good point. All right, we'll see what Eric Bailey brings to the table, the Oklahoma State beat writer for the Tulsa World, because Oklahoma State is one of the 2 teams we highlight today. It's the Pokes and TCU trying to lock in the preseason 9th place team in the Big 12, part of the consensus, where we try and rank each and every Big 12 team and put together our consensus poll. We're up to number 9 today here on Big 12 Today. We are powered by Modelo, heard exclusively on TuneIn, and you're watching us on the Big 12 Fast Channel, Big 12 Studios.
Shot of the 45. Here's Greenwood to the perimeter with a first down. And into TCU territory, hit by Canada.
Comes out with a zone option here coming off. You see him holding the football there because he can throw the football. If Love makes a block there.
So he's come back this year, had to earn the job in fall camp, did so, and he's been great. This quick hitter from Wilson, and an immediate tackle in the open field. DeJon Stanley with the catch, but stopped well short. Wilson going to check down to the left. It's 1-on-2. A little hesitation move, and then Bernard gets shoved out of bounds.
Plays in the block here. Morton's pass. Round route complete, but short of the first down yardage.
Is Mayava floating into the end zone.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Today we are diving into the consensus powered by our good friends at Modelo. And Eric Bailey is our guest from the Tulsa World. And Eric, we are ranking each and every Big 12 team, kind of our Big 12 Today consensus poll. And we bring two teams to the table for each spot. Today we are at ninth place in the Big 12, and Oklahoma State is one of those teams that we are considering to slot in preseason number 9, which would be a major uptick from where they finished the last couple of years, not winning a Big 12 game in 2 seasons. So for them to get there, what has to happen?
First of all, it's pretty incredible that you're correct, James, and thanks for having me on, first of all. It's pretty incredible that we are talking about them, the middle of the Big 12, especially after the last 2 seasons, especially after last year, going winless. It's a complete turnaround from last year. Um, and yes, it is a surprise to see them at number 8, number 9, or number 9. It's a credit to Eric Morris and what the enthusiasm of what they built, and to get there, it just they have to have the offense. And you're looking at a coach that led the nation in offense last year. You're looking at quarterback. You're looking at wide receiver. You're looking at a running back that would have to have the success they had at North Texas. They have to score touchdowns. They have to have a defense that can slow down the opponent. And I think they can do that. And they just have to bring some semblance of what they did at North Texas at Oklahoma State. And he has a proven track record. Basically have a pulse. And I think if everything comes into place that they had at North Texas, I think that they can be in the middle of the pack at the Big 12. Don't get me wrong, though. I don't think Eric Morris is going to be satisfied with just being average. But I think if they can do that, they can finish ninth in the Big 12.
What did you notice about this team watching them in spring, Eric? And what do you think stands out about like things that they will definitely be able to do?
I think enthusiasm and hope. I think that's the big thing. They brought 80 new players into the program. That there was no talk about last year at all. And I think that there's only 10% of the roster came back from last year. So a lot of these players don't remember what happened last year. And the ones that do, they've bought into Eric Morris's style, his game plan, what he wants to bring. So I think that's what I realize. This is a brand new team. This is a brand new program. The ones that remember last year are the fans and the people that are around, even the staff. He cleaned house. There's nobody left in that locker room, in that building, that really recall what happened last year. And I think that's the key. You really needed to clean house. You really need to wipe the slate clean, and that's what it is. This is a brand new program. So I think that's what I noticed. I mean, this is a new team. They don't talk about what happened last year because they don't, they wanted to erase the minds of everyone. And I think that's what I noticed. And there's enthusiasm. They want to win football games. They want to right the ship, and that's the key. And that's what I noticed. It's not going to be easy. There's not going to be a seamless transition by any means. But Eric Morris has really injected that enthusiasm, that will to win, and that's what we're going to see. And that's why we're talking today about them turning things around. We're seeing it right now. And that's why we're talking about them being, number 9 in the Big 12.
I think, Eric, just having an electric offense is going to re-energize the fan base like we haven't seen in 3 years. So even if the defense is giving up 30 or 40 a game, or who knows on that side of the ball, we know the offense is going to score points. What would that mean for the fans? And what do you think the fan expectations are for year one of this Eric Morris tenure?
This is a proud football program with a proud fan base. They're used to winning. They had 2 decades of success. They're wounded right now. They're scarred up. This has been a difficult 2 years for them. 3 years ago, they were playing for a Big 12 title, and that's fresh in their memories. So this has been a tough 2 year run for them, and they're just excited. They're hopeful. They're optimistic, and it's been tough to deal with. They're not used to this. And when Oklahoma and Texas left the Big 12, they really expected to really run this league. So it's been just they're knocked to the ground. They really are. So I think when Eric Morris arrived, especially with his pedigree and what he did at North Texas, and they saw what he did last year. You know, they had a chance to make the college football playoff last year. I think it really inspired them. And then they see Drew Mestamaker and they see the high expectations of Drew Mestamaker. They see these preseason magazines coming out, calling him, the top quarterback in the Big 12, the projections, if not the top or one of the top two quarterbacks in the Big 12. And Oklahoma State's had its run of top quarterbacks in the league. It's exactly what they expect in Stillwater. So I think the expectations are high. And, I think you hope that Big 12 or Oklahoma State fans are realistic, that it's going to be tough to start with. Again, it's not going to be seamless. You hope they're realistic. It's going to take a little bit of time, especially with Oregon as your second game of the year and as your first home opener with Eric Morris as quarterback or as coach. But they're excited. They're ready for a transition. But there's a lot of excitement in Stillwater right now for this program change with a new coach in on the sideline.
Eric, what are reasonable expectations for this team? Does the fan base expect that this team is going to be a bowl team?
Yeah, I think that's probably where it starts. And I think that's the key. You really want to go six. You got to get 6 wins. I think that's the key. You need to get back to the postseason. Again, if you ask Eric Morris, he doesn't want that to be the low end. He wants to win 8, 9, 10 games. I'm sure that's what he wants. That's what he expects. He doesn't want the high end to be a bowl game. He's going to want to go in there and win 8, 9, 10 games. You're not going to set the bar at a bowl game. He's going to want higher expectations than that. But I really think realistically, if they can get back to a bowl, that's a good season for this team because of where they've been the last 2 years. But they could be a dark horse. The schedule's kind this year. When you look at the schedule, they avoid some of the bigger teams in the league. They do play Texas Tech, but I think the schedule really lends itself to getting to 6 wins. And I think that they do have an opportunity to go back to a bowl, which would be really good for this program after the last 2 years. It's a good foundational start for Eric Morris and his staff.
Eric Bailey is our guest, highlighting Oklahoma State today, covers Oklahoma State for the Tulsa World here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. So, Eric, what do you think is, we call it a hinge point, the difference between a 5-7 season and an 8 or 9 or maybe even 10 win season? What would you highlight there for Oklahoma State?
I think the big game, of course, the first 3 games, the conference games, you got your FCS opponent, you got Tulsa, and you got Oregon. Those are going to be big. That first 3 games, you're going to see what you have. If you go 2-1 in those 3 games, the Tulsa game is going to be big at the season opener at Tulsa. You got to win that game because you lost to Tulsa last year. That was a tough loss, and it was the loss really that got Mike Gundy fired last year. But if you can go 2-1 in those games, I think the hinge game is going to be West Virginia in Morgantown. You got to get that win to start the Big 12. You got to break that Big 12 losing streak. You got to start 1-0 in the conference. If you go 3-1, you win that Big 12 opener on the road. I think that's the key. That'll get you to 6 probably if you can win on the road at West Virginia. Start the Big 12 right. In September at 3-1. I think that's the key. And there's a possibility you can, with this schedule, you can really start if you get on some kind of roll. You can really go 6-1 to start the season if you play really good football. The back end's tough of the schedule, but the front end, you can really, if you get on a roll and you're playing really good football, you can get to 6-1. It's going to be tough. I'm not saying they're going to go 6-1, but if they're playing good football and they get on a roll, they can get to 6-1. But that West Virginia game at the end of September on the road in Morgantown, I think that's the key. You're really hoping you're going into Morgantown at 3-1 or 2-1, excuse me.
Eric, yeah, I'm curious, obviously beyond like Drew Mestamaker and maybe, Caleb Hawkins, like who are the transfer portal players you're most excited to see this year?
The one player I'm really excited about seeing is Chris Barnes, the wide receiver. He had a really outstanding spring football game. Barnes, he had 4 catches for 141 yards. And I think oh gosh, I'm trying to remember how long his touchdown pass was. I think it was 90, God, I want to say 98 yard. He had a 98-yard touchdown reception in the spring game. He's someone that can really, really be a playmaker. And that's one thing that Eric Morris mentioned during his portal season when he was going through the portal. He had something that really made him successful at North Texas was recruiting speed, and that's something that really made his offense really big when he was at North Texas. Was he wanted playmakers, he wanted speed. And Barnes is someone that can be a playmaker and someone that can create chaos at the wideout. And I think that's someone that he averaged, I think, I want to say 14 yards of reception when Chris Barnes was at Wake Forest. And I think Barnes really can complement someone like Wyatt Young. Wyatt Young's a great possession receiver from North Texas. I think Barnes can be a playmaker at that wide receiver position that can create chaos at the wide receiver spot. Can be a real compliment to Mestamaker. And this offense, that's the big thing. I mean, they can throw the ball. Mestamaker showed it at North Texas. Caleb Hawkins is going to be big in the run game. And if they can find that playmaker at wide receiver, that guy that can stretch the defense, go over the top, I think that's big. So you got to keep an eye on Barnes and of course Israel Polk, another wide receiver from Akron. I think that's going to be big too. It all comes down to playmakers, different playmakers on offense. And I keep mentioning all these playmakers at offense. Everything's predicated on the offensive line, and it's going to be meshing on that offensive line as well.
Really good stuff. Yeah, Chris Barnes was at Wake Forest, and to your point, had pretty good numbers in a very anemic offense. And then before that, he was at Washington State. So just
Yeah.
connecting the dots, I'm sure he was
Mhm.
recruited by Eric Morris when he was there.
Yeah.
Eric, appreciate your time. Great insight. We will dive into our Oklahoma State preview coming up around the corner. Eric, great to catch up, and we'll see you up here at Media Days.
All right, you guys. Thanks for having me. You guys have a good weekend, okay?
Bud. Thank you.
Eric Bailey covers Oklahoma State for the Tulsa World here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are brought to you by Modelo. Off-season optimism is mandatory. That's a fan rule. And coming up next, it is the consensus. We have two teams. We debate. We look at both rosters. We look at things that could derail them and things that have to go right for them to have a breakthrough season. Spot number 9, part of the consensus on our Big 12 Today poll. That's next. This is Big 12 Radio, exclusively on TuneIn.
Bachmeier delivers, caught miraculously by Chase Roberts. Comfortable in the pocket here. Chase Roberts turning it, coming the other way, inside the 30, and Chase Roberts.
And it is a bookstore, but it's really a museum.
Well, they might put that one in the museum one day. Good catch by Chase Roberts at BYU. 5 minutes to go in the first. Bachmeier surveys, pulls, touchdown Cougars. Mr. BYU, Chase Roberts.
Off the RPO, what a strike. Chase Roberts chugging across the 40, tight ropes the sideline, and finally pulled down by Darian Lewis at the 4-yard line.
Big 12 today coming to you each and every weekday from 8A to 11A Eastern right here on Big 12 Radio. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. This is where we dive into the off-season. Doesn't mean off. It means research powered by our friends at Modelo, and we have started the consensus where we try to lock in Big 12 teams 1 through 16 preseason. We've done all the transfer portal overviews. We've ranked different position groups. And so now we're actually putting our money where our mouth is. And at spot number 9 today, I bring to the table Oklahoma State. Ari brings to the table TCU. So let's start with what changed from last year, kind of where they finished, and a roster grade for this offseason. Ari, you can have the floor with TCU and what your expectations are for the Horned Frogs.
Yeah, on the consensus, I have TCU at number 9 on my list as we made our way from 16 to 9 right now. TCU at 9-4 last year. They had that great win over USC in the Alamo Bowl at overtime. It's the second consecutive 9-win season. I think there's two different ways to paint TCU right now, and there is the very optimistic side, which is let's look at what Sonny Dykes has done and all the wins and everything else. On the other hand, though, you have a program that finished 14-13 in conference play over the previous 3 seasons. They've had turnover issues. They have not been able to run the football effectively, and they've had major struggles on defense. And they've had some really devastating losses against teams they probably should be beating, including a 6-6 K-State team in 2025, UCF in Houston in 2024. So 9 wins is good. The problem is this program graduated from that on a consistent basis. And so this year, expectations are fairly high despite the roster turnover that they have. The big change, and I'll turn this back over to you to evaluate Oklahoma State, although taking a look at 2025 for Oklahoma State, it's probably not informative on 2026. But Gordon Samus enters as the new offensive coordinator here, replaces Kendall Briles. Samus was the OC at UConn, where he had 9 win seasons back-to-back years for the first time ever, going 18-7, including wins over Power 4 opponents in North Carolina, Boston College, and Duke. And the one thing about Gordon Samus' teams at UConn, they can run the football very effectively, James.
And that's something that TCU hasn't been able to do the last 3 years.
Right. With any regularity.
I would say, like, we talk about a hinge point for these teams. I think for TCU, like, this is a hinge season. You hit the nail on the head. They've been good, but they haven't been great or elite since that national championship season. So it feels like to me this is either a breakthrough year or regression. I don't think we're going to see another right in the middle of that 8 or 9 win area for TCU. For Oklahoma State, so they fire Gundy mid-season. They finish 1-11. They hire a guy in Eric Morris who ran the number 1 offense in America, and he brought 17 of his own North Texas players with him. But he brought in almost 90 players total. So this isn't just a North Texas transplant team. And all the stats and all the numbers from last year, to your point as well, you just throw those away. Like, none of that matters. This is a complete overhaul. They just had their worst season since 1991. They haven't won a Big 12 game in 2 seasons. Their only win last year was week 1 against UT Martin. And in that UT Martin game, remember, they lost their quarterback for the season in Haas Haney. They'd scored on every possession that he was on the field. And then it just sucked the life out of that stadium because you saw that there was a major drop-off at that position when Zane Flores came in. So you've got a new coach, you've got a new team, everything is new with Oklahoma State. That is kind of where I would start with the Cowboys. So in terms of roster construction grade or what changed for TCU, what do you give the Horned Frogs?
Yeah, I mean, I think the roster construction grade here is sort of a B-, C+, and that is, I'm not sure that the incoming is better than the outgoing. And then on top of that, look, I mean, their entire defensive line is back, and I think from an optimistic standpoint, that's where you've got to start. Zach Chapman, Paul Oyewale, Marcus Deal, all return. Din Mabua, same thing. So, when I'm looking at this roster in terms of how they built it, a part of the grade has to be who's back and why they didn't have to do anything there. And then the other part of that is, okay, I mean, have they actually upgraded in certain spots? I mean, Jaden Craig for Josh Hoover. I think when you look at Craig, I mean, he's had a tremendous career, but this is a different ball of wax than the Ivy League here. And Hoover did have a lot of interceptions, but the dude produced and put up some big time numbers. So I think, the jury's out on whether or not they've upgraded at the quarterback position. We shall see. They've certainly got a different quarterback with a different mentality and a different approach with the same motivations. And that I think is what's most interesting. And look, I just think a roster with this much unresolved variance facing the level of schedule difficulty that they have, for me, is why I have TCU in this spot. It's a huge red flag for me. They have major question marks. They've got a really tough schedule.
They do have a tough schedule. They do. Opening with North Carolina overseas, that dreaded Aer Lingus Classic game that has not fared well for teams that have played in that game. There's always a bit of a hangover period, win or lose in that game. For Oklahoma State, what's changed is obviously a new coach. So the number one offense in the country. Also, this was the first time since 1969 that Oklahoma State hired a sitting head coach, FBS head coach. Gundy was an assistant. Les Miles was an assistant. And that goes all the way back to the late 60s. With the roster construction. So 17 new players, 17 transplants from North Texas, 85 new players. 10 of those North Texas guys play offense. Only 7 play defense. So I start with my concerns for Oklahoma State is obviously the defensive side of the football. It was still a top 25 defense nationally, but you're only bringing 7 of those guys from North Texas, and the other portal guys defensively are somewhat unproven. They bring in a linebacker from UCLA that had really good numbers, but they're like the edge rusher that they're highest on is a former high 4-star recruit from the area who went to Florida State, but he didn't play a ton at Florida State. He played some, but Florida State's a program they've got a coach that's probably got the hottest seat in America. Like, why wasn't he getting more snaps for a Florida State defense? It was really struggling.
Right. Great question.
Drew Mestamaker obviously is the headliner. 4,400 yards, 34 touchdowns, signed that 2-year deal that was reported to be worth $7 million, by far the richest in program history. So the NIL influx in Stillwater, how much we know they were at the bottom of the league last year. Where are they this year? Are they middle of the pack? Are they still bottom third? Are they top third? We just don't know. So I would give roster construction grade probably an A on offense. Like, you got all the dudes you wanted to get. I love what they've done at receiver. But defense, B-. I don't even know what to stamp the defense. So collectively, I'm probably in a B+, B+ for Oklahoma State. How about TCU?
Yeah, I mean, again, TCU, I would put that at a C+ in terms of their roster grade construction, B-, C+. I think Oklahoma State roster construction wise is in a significantly better place based on outgoing versus incoming. I think that's important too to factor in. I think Oklahoma State, to me, I don't know if they get an A, but it feels like it's pretty close to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, for TCU, what has to go right, and what is your number one red flag?
The hinge point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Jaden Craig, and it's doing what he's done at Harvard, which is protecting the football. And in doing that, you'd think that they'd have a effective ground game, right? So I think this team is going to try to be completely opposite of what they've been. That is a big strike, quick strike offense that can score from any spot on the field, but can also turn the football over and not really run the ball effectively. I think it's going to be the exact opposite this year. And so the hinge point this season is can they run the football effectively? And can Jaden Craig avoid turning the ball over, which is something he obviously did pretty tremendously at Harvard, but is it something that he could do at this level? Hoover had 33 interceptions in 3 seasons at TCU. So if Craig plays anything close to what he had in the Ivy in the Big 12, then this run game will improve from it, and the offense will be dramatically better. Oh, by the way, Jaden Craig probably gets to the radar as an NFL quarterback as well, which is, where to me the rubber meets the road on the potential TCU success this year is Craig's motivations married, with the fact that they want him to play a completely different style that they have played previously, and that if things go right, that this could be an overwhelming success.
My hinge point is similar. You highlight a couple of transfers, notably at quarterback. I would highlight all the transfers at Oklahoma State. Like, it's really hard to overhaul an entire roster. It worked at Indiana. But for every Indiana, there's a North Carolina. There's a Boston College. There's a Colorado in the Big 12 who won 3 games last year. Like, that is way more common than the Indiana story. True. And so I brought up the defense earlier, but even offensively, I see some concerns when it comes to the offensive line, okay? Like, Braden Nelson is projected to be their number 1 dude. He's going to be their left tackle. Has 6'4", long arms, over 320 pounds, started the last 25 of 26 at North Texas. He graded out as the 7th best offensive lineman in the American Conference. He was second team all-conference. He's not a first-team elite tackle. Tyler Mercer is highlighted, expected to start at center. He was at North Texas before he transfers to KU. Now he reunites with his coach. They bring in an Oklahoma transfer who is super raw, highly touted out of high school, but raw. They're also expected to start Joseph Hansen, who transfers from Coastal Carolina. He was a Sun Belt honorable mention offensive lineman. Like, I just don't see that wow factor on the offensive line in a league with elite pass rushers. That is a major red flag, and I think the hinge point for just how successful Oklahoma State can be.
In terms of the red flag or red flags, I hit on this earlier, but the one thing that could certainly derail this season for TCU is their schedule. I mean, you start with North Carolina in Ireland, right? So the Aer Lingus Classic has been difficult. Plus, in Big 12 play, you're playing Texas Tech, Utah, BYU, Arizona, Kansas State. I mean, really the top of the Big 12. The worst games are at UCF, at Baylor, West Virginia at home, and Kansas at home. But I mean, your 4 easiest games, 2 of them are on the road, and then of course, again, Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas State, BYU, and at Arizona. So for me, the what could derail this season would be a very difficult schedule for TCU.
The last thing I'll add for Oklahoma State that could derail them is defensively, Skylar Cassidy turned around that North Texas defense. He's still 32 years old. It's Oklahoma State's 6th different defensive coordinator in 6 seasons. They went from Knowles to Mason to Nardo to Todd Granum to Bowen as the interim and now Cassidy. And he did it from North Texas, where he was at Sam Houston before that. Got Sam Houston to a top 25 defense, got North Texas to a top 25 defense, and cut their scoring defense by 10 points per game, their total defense by almost 100 yards, but he only did it in 1 season. So just his inexperience and just how young he is, doing it at the Big 12 level is a lot different to me than it is at North Texas or Sam Houston. So is Oklahoma State going to be in a bunch of 45-40 type shootouts? That's kind of what I foresee with them as we head into the season. Okay, let's take a break. Coming up next, we try to come to the consensus. TCU or Oklahoma State. Is this spot too high, too low, or exactly right? We'll compare them with some other teams that we've gone through this exercise with to this point. We'll look at their ceiling and their floor before Kelvin Sampson joins us in about 30 minutes. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Extended drive brings up a 3rd and goal. The stats crew at the 3. Runs free.
Monday
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, brought to you by Modelo, here exclusively on TuneIn with Ari Timken. I'm James Westling, T-Chains, and Anthony Smith producing. T-Chains on the audio, Anthony Smith on the video. This is the consensus where we try and rank each and every Big 12 team, 1 through 16. It's on the heels of our The Road to Arlington series, and you can hear BYU today, part of the Big 12 Power Hour, at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, The Road to Arlington, where we highlight BYU for the full hour. We just went over a BetMGM over-under win totals that had BYU at 8.5. I think that is way too low for this season. All right, so one thing I was thinking about, Ari, during the break, like Oklahoma State and TCU, the two teams that we're discussing today to be ninth. For Oklahoma State, ninth would be a massive improvement. For TCU, it would be a little bit of a downtick.
Yeah.
But what's like Oklahoma State, SP Plus has them as high as number 38 in the country. More like a bigger jump from last year to this year than anybody in the entire nation. So it almost, in a weird way, feels like expectations for Oklahoma State to have this major breakthrough are maybe higher than TCU to have a major breakthrough. Like, how would you compare the two there?
No, it is really interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic. So I would say, I mean, finishing ninth for TCU would be a disappointment. Finishing ninth for Oklahoma State would probably be in some ways a disappointment, depending on how they get there, even though they haven't won a Big 12 game in 2 years. But I think it's the Eric Morris effect and it's the Drew Mestemaker effect. You know, they've added a ton of players. We've talked all offseason about Caleb Hawkins and some of these other guys they've added from North Texas along with Eric Morris. But it feels like just based on Mestemaker and Morris alone, that those two guys will completely flip the fortunes of Oklahoma State in one offseason. And I don't know how realistic that is. You know, it's as if Kurt Signetti created this, you know, dramatically unrealistic expectations across college football for what should be expected. And look, if Oklahoma State's a bowl team in 2026, 2027, but then sets up for a, you know, potential Big 12 title run in 27. You know, for me, Oklahoma State is more so in the setup year for 2027, whereas, you know, with 1 year of eligibility left for Jaden Craig, with TCU kind of where they are, like this has got to be a 10-win year for a team that's also in transition.
And with Oklahoma State, I don't have any concerns with Drew Mestemaker or the offense being able to score. Like Drew Mestemaker's probably the number one NFL draft prospect in this league at that position. I saw a draft like breakdown of his game, and the number one thing that they flagged was his decision making. Okay, I'm not worried about that part of it. Like Eric Morris is brilliant. That's his strength. That was his first year last year as a starter ever. Remember, he didn't start in high school, and he throws for 4,400 yards and 35 touchdowns. So just another year in the Eric Morris family or system. Mestemaker is going to be Mestemaker. Like, I don't care what level or who it's against, but can they run the football? Can they get off the field on third downs? Can they win the turnover battle? There are so many other things outside of that that I almost think gets overlooked because of Mestemaker and Caleb Hawkins and all the other guys. I love what they've done at receiver, but like those three position groups aren't going to win you 8 or 9 games alone. There has to be other factors that play into it.
I've got TCU at ninth. By the way, I have Oklahoma State at eighth. So, you know, again, you and I kind of have disagreements here over maybe a spot or two different. But the case for moving TCU up here would be that you've got a guy in Dykes who has 36 wins in the Big 12, which is the most of the Big 12 since he arrived. Of course, they're also obviously the only team in the Big 12 right now with an active, you know, the active conference member with a college football playoff win, which should mean something. And then, you know, I mean, Jamala Johnson led the Big 12 in interceptions last year. They have their defensive line back. Like, this defense should be very, very good. And the strength of this team that will then lean on their running game and quarterback to not turn the ball over. This is a dramatic departure from what we saw last year, where they couldn't counter their defense because their offense was so quick strike and couldn't run the football. They want to be the exact opposite on offense. They hired Gordon Samus, brought in Jaden Craig to do that. And then defensively, they want to be what they've been. And I think based on that, sort of having a better understanding of who they are and how to win, is a good case for why they might, why 9 might be a little bit too low for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my case for Oklahoma State being higher would be that defensively, Skylar Cassidy, like he is a mastermind. I don't know how he does it at creating takeaways and winning the turnover battle. He did it at Sam Houston. They were top 5 nationally in turnover margin every year he was coordinating there. They were top 10 in the country in turnover margin last year at North Texas, whereas the previous 2 seasons, they couldn't get a takeaway to save their lives. So I would expect a major uptick there from Oklahoma State. And maybe he is the guy that can coordinate a defense that really, even if they give up 26 or 27 points per game, can probably win 7 or 8. And then you brought this up earlier, the schedule, right? So Oklahoma State opens at Tulsa. This is not the same Oklahoma State. That might even be a better Tulsa, but the last time Eric Morris played Tulsa, he beat them 52-20. Like, I think they're going to be okay there. And then Oregon. But then after that, you get that throwaway game against Murray State. Their Big 12 schedule shapes up pretty nice. Like, you have to play on the road a bunch. That concerns me a little. But their first 5 Big 12 games, outside of one, are probably all winnable. At West Virginia, UCF, at Houston, Colorado at home, at Iowa State. So there's a chance to establish a lot of momentum if you're Oklahoma State, whereas, as you noted with TCU, it's going to be much more challenging.
Yeah. The case to move them down would be, you've got an FCS quarterback that's never played in the Big 12, where TCU is betting entirely on him while replacing their entire interior of their offensive line and breaking a first-year offensive play caller, right? So the fact that they have to win now based on Craig being in the final year of eligibility, the fact that he's never played in the Big 12 and he's only been in the Ivy League, and then you've got Gordon Samus, who's never called plays at this level, along with a brand new interior of the offensive line, that's to me the case against TCU being moved up. In fact, the case for why TCU might need to even be lower on this list.
Yeah, I would say the case for moving Oklahoma State down would be kind of what you touched on there in the trenches for Oklahoma State, both sides of the ball. The offensive line at North Texas last year wasn't great. Now, because of the system, the offensive line doesn't have to be elite for them to score, but like Caleb Hawkins led the nation in broken tackles. He was getting hit a bunch. I'm not sure he can bounce away from defenders in the Big 12 like he did in the American. So the offensive line is somewhat concerning to me. And then defensively on the line of scrimmage, that's where they are bringing back some guys that were on the Oklahoma State team last year, Malik Charles and Jaleel Johnson. Sadiq Clemens is going to be their defensive tackle. He's a transfer. Kavian Huddleston is a transfer from North Texas who's expected to probably start, either him or Williams, the kid I talked about earlier, who didn't see the field a ton at Florida State. I really like their linebackers. I really like their secondary. But when you think of like a spread air raid offense, a lot of times it comes down to, do they get dominated at the line of scrimmage?
Great point.
Are they scoring in garbage time when they've already given up 5 or 6 yards per carry and they're no longer in a game? Can they control the clock? Like, those are the biggest question marks and the biggest case why I think they could potentially move down.
How do you evaluate their offensive line? Is it good enough? Will it be good enough? Because I think you're right. The whole deal is about the offensive line.
So what do you know about Tyler Mercer? Transferred from KU.
Yeah, pretty good player. The Kansas offensive lines have been pretty consistently good despite having different personnel as long as Lance Leipold has been there. It's been a staple of their program, to give Lance some credit. Like that's been as good of a unit overall every year, regardless of personnel, and Mercer was a big part of that.
Okay, yeah, because he's expected to be one of their top 2 offensive linemen. Like, he might be a headliner. And then Braden Nelson, I touched on this earlier. Nelson is your left tackle. He's 6'4". He's not 6'7", 6'8", like the tackles at Texas Tech or BYU. He was the 7th highest graded offensive lineman in the American. He wasn't first team all AAC. He's a second team all AAC guy. So a number 1 scoring offense in the country, and your best offensive lineman isn't even first team all league, and he's your headliner transferring to the Big 12. So I'm not 100% sold that the offensive line, it'll be better than it was last year at Oklahoma State because it was probably the worst in the league. But I don't know that it's enough for them to pick up those short yardage situations where you've got to be able to run the ball. Like this league has proven that, at least in recent, like looking at the last 2 or 3 years, if you can't run the football, you can't win a conference championship or be an 8 or a 9-win team. So that's, to answer your question, I'm not 100% sold on the offensive line being as good as it needs to be for them to, a ninth place finish would be a breakthrough, but to be like a top 7 team in the Big 12.
Well, look, I think you're exactly right. That's a huge question for a team that is high expectations. And look, I think this could be a tough spot because now we're looking at teams that could potentially have major surprise seasons versus, again, like I think Oklahoma State ends up here fine. I think TCU ends up here not so fine. And I don't know what the conversation is around Fort Worth. If they're at another 8-win season or 9-win season, I mean, by most accounts, 9 wins is really good, especially when you talk about a brand new offensive coordinator, a brand new quarterback who's never played at this level. The case for keeping TCU at 9, I think just the defensive continuity and then Dykes' track record gives you at least a pretty known floor here. So like a true total collapse for this team seems unrealistic, again, based on just defensive continuity, coaching staff, and the fact that Dykes, has a pretty substantial track record here. And I just don't know how I could put them higher. And I guess this is where the rubber meets the road for our conversation here, based on those question marks. Whereas with Oklahoma State, like the question marks are there, but they're at least a little bit more proven given the coach, coordinator, quarterback situation. This is a brand new coordinator, brand new coach. Sorry, brand new coordinator, brand new quarterback, with a coach that's been there and has had a lot of success on offense. But how much will he be influential? And again, these are brand new pieces that Samus has never coached. Jaden Craig. Craig has never played for Samus or Dykes. So I think that dynamic is really interesting to watch for. Probably why I don't have them higher.
What do you think is the national perception versus Big 12 reality for TCU? Because they're in the national championship game 3 years ago, which, by the way, I know they got crushed by Georgia. Like Georgia, that was not the largest spread in a college football playoff game. Georgia beat Florida State by even more 1 year after. But the perception of TCU is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like now they're an afterthought. Is that justified?
No, I think that's exactly what the national perception is. And it's funny because of contrast that with Oklahoma State. They're like the preseason darling here. I think when you look at any of the preseason expectations, preseason podcasts, preseason magazines, like most of the Big 12 under the radar love would be Oklahoma State. I'm not even sure TCU is a part of that. And yet TCU seems like the perfect candidate in that way, in terms of like they're not going to be thought of as one of the top teams of the Big 12, but they certainly could if things break their way.
And I mentioned earlier that SP Plus projects Oklahoma State at 38th nationally. It's the biggest year-over-year jump of any team in the country, like plus 22 adjusted points per game. Their schedule, even with Oregon, is pretty favorable. But the Oregon game is a massive litmus test for me because you lose 67-3 last year. It's at home. It's Eric Morris's home opener, even though their road game week 1 is at Tulsa. There'll be a ton of Oklahoma State fans at that game. But Oregon week 2, if you were to put a number on it, like what is a win even in a loss for Oklahoma State?
I think a 1-score game.
1-score game?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because last year, nobody expected Oklahoma State to be competing in that game.
Right.
Nobody did. I would say that's completely flipped this year. Now, maybe that's just us internally, and maybe like the external expectations are different because Oregon is going to be really good, and there's still a lot of unknown about Oklahoma State. But I would say, a 1-score game. Is
For
that too
me,
hard? Is that too harsh, do you think?
like, is that
Lofty? Too lofty?
lofty? Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Like for me, I think the fact that Oregon just shut out Texas Tech, what Oklahoma State does offensively against that team is probably the biggest thing that I think we can lean into. But with Oregon having Dante Moore back, I know it's in still. I was thinking like a 47-35 type game. I think you're feeling really good about that. Like if you could score some points against that defense that just shut out what was supposed to be the best offense in the Big 12 last year and led the nation in explosive plays, I think there's a lot that Oklahoma State fans can be excited about and lean into. And then you don't lose any type of momentum. But if you get beat by 3 or 4 touchdowns, it's going to be a hard reset for, okay, maybe this team is further off than we thought based off of the preseason expectations.
Well, and that's where, okay, so like think about these non-conference games. So TCU goes to Ireland to play North Carolina in a game that they are very much expected to win, and it would be a huge disappointment if they didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Oklahoma State, it's like, yeah, just be competitive, just score some points against Oregon, and you'll be fine. Now, I'm not trying to compare Oregon and North Carolina here. I'm just simply saying, like, shouldn't that tell us a lot about what preseason expectations are for these two teams?
Very much so. The other thing that hurts TCU, I don't know that. I think it'll be hard pressed to find a moral victory, regardless of score,
Correct.
against North Carolina because you just crushed them last year, and North Carolina
No,
was
there
one of
would
the worst power conference teams in the country.
Yeah, there would be no moral victory unless at the end of the year you look up and they're, at the top of the ACC. But even then, this was one of the premier non-conference games last year for the Big 12. It was one of the best wins when it happened, and then I think it obviously didn't age so well. But it's funny because last year was very much an unknown, and I cannot wait to talk to Sonny Dykes about this game at Media Days here in a few weeks. But it feels like this year is also sort of an unknown with North Carolina too. Like maybe we know a little bit more about them schematically and what they've been and what they were last year, and how much what they did, what Belichick did in New England, what continues to translate to North Carolina. Like they'll have a little bit more, but for the most part, still it's like a very blind game they're going into again.
Mm-hmm. Because North Carolina's completely overhauled their roster
Right.
for the second year in a row. All right, what is the ceiling and what is the floor? Wins and losses, looking at the schedule for TCU.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the ceiling is the Big 12 championship. Like, I don't think that's crazy. I think the floor is pretty high too because of that defense we talked about. Like, you've got the guy that led the Big 12 in interceptions last year returning in Johnson. You've got your entire defensive line back, even your depth. So anything you added at the defensive line is just added depth. So I mean, when you start there, like I think your floor is pretty high. Like to me, that's a 7-win team. Like at a minimum, this is a bowl team. 6, 7 wins would not be good enough, but I'm just simply saying like what the floor would be. And I think the ceiling is the Big 12 championship. I don't think there's any question about that. If things go exactly the way that Sonny Dykes planned based on the roster construction this offseason, then this should be a team that gets to Arlington, because like their biggest issue is turnovers and scoring too fast, putting their defense back on the field. Now their defense should be dramatically improved. There's a level of continuity. The coaching staff's the same. Have taken a big jump last year, and then now you shouldn't turn the ball over as much, and you should have a much more robust running game. That's a should, not will, and I think that's there between 6, 7 wins and 10, 11 wins.
Do you know how many Big 12 home games does TCU have? Oklahoma State only has 4, and I can break down their schedule in a moment. They only have 6 home games total. They have 6 true road games this season, so it's like a 50-50 split for the Pokes.
TCU has 5 Big 12 home games.
Okay.
BYU, West Virginia, Kansas, Kansas State, and Utah.
And they'll probably be favored in 3 of those,
Yes.
I would think.
Yes.
So that's a tough, home slate. Oklahoma State, they play Oregon at home, Murray State. They only have 4 Big 12 home games. Another thing about Oklahoma State, I think both schedules are challenging. Oklahoma State's schedule is not very friendly. Will that air raid offense travel? Will that defense travel? Your home games are UCF, Colorado, Oregon, Texas Tech, Kansas, and Murray State. Your road games at West Virginia, at Houston, at Kansas State, who we just talked about earlier is a sexy pick to be a top 4 team in the league, at Arizona State, late in the year when I think Arizona State could be really good. Man, I'm in terms of ceiling for Oklahoma State, I see if they go 8-4, build Eric Morris a statue, Big 12 Coach of the Year. Like that, with this schedule, you'd have to win at Houston. You'd have to probably win at Kansas State or at Arizona State, maybe upset Texas Tech. Like 8-4 to me would be really good for Oklahoma State. How about the floor if the bottom falls out in Fort Worth?
I think I gave it to you, right?
Did you give me a number?
Yeah. 6-7 wins be the floor. I don't think it's much lower than that because of their defense.
Okay, I like it. For Oklahoma State, think you beat Tulsa. Think you beat Iowa State. Think you probably 4-8, maybe 5-7. So yeah, I don't see, kind of like you with TCU, I don't see a ton of variety between the floor and the ceiling.
Not much variance there between what they could do in terms of the top end versus the low end. I'd push back a little bit. Like I think your floor is probably right. Like I could see Oklahoma State missing and not being a bowl team this year, but I mean I think if things go right, like they could catch lightning in a bottle and like it could be a Big 12 title contender. I don't think there's any question about that. I think I don't know that there's expectations of that, but I also it wouldn't be as shocking as you might think it would be, given this is a team that has not won a Big 12 game in 2 years.
Bill Connolly has Oklahoma State as his sleeper pick to win the league.
Yeah.
He uses this formula, and it's based off of basically what Indiana has done the last 2 years, and he highlights a team. He has Oklahoma State as the most likely team in the entire country to be in the college football playoff based off all that criteria. All right, Taman. First of all, Ari, do we have a consensus here for number 9?
No, I think Oklahoma State should definitely be higher on this list.
T-Chains, what's the verdict?
I agree with Ari. James, I think you're not giving Oklahoma State. You're not giving them enough credit. I think Drew Mestemaker and Eric Morris are bringing not only. We know they're going to be good offensively, but I think they're kind of going to bring an identity, a culture change to Stillwater that is really, I don't know, it's just really encouraging for that program. TCU to me has a lot of questions. I think Ari put it right when he said that their roster construction grades a B- or C+. They have a difficult schedule. What is the questions with Jaden Craig? I know Gordon Samus at UConn, they didn't turn the ball over a lot, but you're dealing with a quarterback who has a lot of question marks, and you're going into the Big 12. You're not at Harvard anymore. So to me, TCU has too many questions. They had questions last year, and Sonny Dykes, as good as he's been, it's more or less been like, well, has it been good enough? And I think Oklahoma State has I think they're often, I don't think you mentioned Caleb Hawkins' name and how big of an impact he's going to be. I know you question their offensive line, which you can say is, legitimate, has some issues with, Braden Nelson being their best player. But I don't know. I see this program really on the up and up. And I think that their offense will be so explosive that it'll, make up for a lot of their defensive flaws. There will be some games where the offense doesn't show up and their defense, will lose them some games for sure. But I just think TCU has too many questions, and I have them over 9 at number 9, and I think Oklahoma State will be a lot better than you kind of debated them for.
Yeah, and I think just to expand on that just for a moment here, James, like just look at the quarterback situation here. I think that the Mavs have just hired Dusty May.
Whoa,
that's a big deal. Sorry, just to finish my point, I would rather have Drew Mestamaker and Eric Morris than I would Jaden Craig and Gordon Samus. You can cut that and use that against me in a few months from now if TCU's off to this tremendous start and they're a huge surprise in college football. But I think where we sit right now, I would rather have Drew Mestamaker and Eric Morris than I would Jaden Craig and Gordon Samus.
Well,
but Dusty May has been hired as the new Dallas Mavericks basketball coach.
Yeah, you guys are just stupid and dumb, and I'm really personally offended by this decision, but I guess we'll lock in TCU at number 9. Wow. Dusty May is going to be the coach of the Mavs.
Yeah.
That's news for the Big 12.
Wow. Okay. Well, Kelvin Sampson is our next guest, the head men's basketball coach at Houston. We'll talk NBA draft. We'll ask him about Dusty May going to the Mavs coming up next year on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Play fake. Sorsby taking a shot. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Kyrie connecting for a touchdown. Sorsby hits Cyrus Allen for the second time today.
And again, his confidence is growing. Hart always said to commit to a school, not a coach. That's why he has persevered in Cincinnati. Now he'll launch for the end zone. Perfectly thrown ball. Touchdown, Cyrus Allen.
With an option pitch around the edge. Cyrus Allen is in. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Joe Porter back onto the field, top of your screen. Pressure comes. Cyrus Allen out of the backfield with his third touchdown. This offense has been unstoppable. Sorsby has 55 of the 130 rushing yards. Fires to the end zone.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, heard on TuneIn, watched on the Big 12 Fast Channel, Big 12 Studios, NBA Draft tomorrow night. Super pumped to catch up with Houston head coach Kelvin Sampson. Coach, happy belated Father's Day to you. And also, man, we were just talking, Dusty May just got hired by the Mavs, and you said you know Dusty and worked with him somewhere. And as somebody who coached in the NBA, is crushing it at the college level too, I would just love to get your perspective on that hire.
Well, Dusty is a basketball guy. He's extremely bright, been able to mix and match. I don't think anybody saw the actual Luxembourg as a three, for instance, but he did, and he made it work. And that's moving the pieces around and coming up with something where, it's like cooking a pot of gumbo. You got to have a lot of pieces, you got to have a lot of spices, and you got to make it work. And he's proven that he could do that at the highest level. But that's great for Dusty. I think it also speaks to the climate that we're in, where a guy can see what's happening in college and say, you know what, the NBA might be a better fit for me right now. But extremely excited for Dusty. I guess the question now is, who's the next guy at Michigan?
Yeah, it's a great point, right? Because it goes from, one coaching search to another. So we'll see where Michigan lines up. And, on that, in terms of the motivations, I'm curious for, what do you think motivations are right now for college coaches to make the jump?
Well, I think there's been a timeline. College basketball is the only sport that allows underclassmen to put their name in the draft, go on visits, and then have a hard date where they have to say they're going to come back or not. Baseball doesn't do it. Football doesn't do it. No other sport does it, but we did it. When I say anti-program building, I'm always speaking on the side of the coaches. Every rule they put in now, whether it's basketball or for the student athlete, let's just go to referees, for instance. When you think about all the new rules, it's made the game easier for the referees to call, starting with the jump ball. They don't have to throw a jump ball up one time. That's it. You can go to the monitor and make sure you get it right. Think about all the years where there was no monitor. You had to throw a jump ball up every time there was a loose ball. And a lot of these rules are good. It's advanced the game. But when you go for, the rules have made the game easier to call in some ways. Referees may disagree, but the rules that's been in place for student athletes have all benefited the student athlete. And a lot of times those are anti-program building roles for the coach. So we have to find a way to make it work. I think one of the things Dusty realizes, you win the national championship, what's next for him? He lost all those, most of those guys because they were all portal guys. And once you get on the portal wagon, it's hard to get off. You don't just go portal for 2 or 3 years and say, you know what, let's go high school. Doesn't work like that anymore. So whether it's the transfer rule, the NIL rule, those are all great for student athletes, but it's made it more difficult to sustain a program year after year after year, and you just have to know how to build a program and get guys that fit. Fans are like kids on Christmas morning. A kid pops up, Mary, let's get him. They don't have to do any background check. They don't have to see whether or not that kid will fit your program. But every coach has a way of doing it, and there's a lot of successful coaches out there that figure a way, and that's kind of the way we've done it here at Houston. We got a good idea of what we want our team to look like, and that's how we start with the recruiting. And then relationships. I had lunch with the owner, Mr. Crane, for the Astros, and we just, he pitched college baseball at Central Missouri State. We were talking, and he's asked me a bunch of questions about portal, NIL. And then I turned it over and asked him about what's the one thing that you have to be a contender in baseball. He said three things: pitching, pitching, pitching. And I think with college basketball is having a vision of what you want your team to look like and getting guys that can fit into that vision. This is not Disneyland where you go get on every ride you see. Every ride's not for me. Every kid's not for me, and I'm not for every kid. So I think it starts there. But I think anytime you see a national championship coach, I think the last one that stepped away was Al McGuire. And we've had some other guys in the championship game, and it's been talk whether they'd come back or not. But Dusty May is, he's was on the verge of being one of the top coaches in our game if he wasn't already. And to lose him to the NBA, it was a little bit of a gut punch for our game. But our game is bigger than anybody. So it'll create some social media storms, talk radio storms. But eventually Michigan's going to get them a good coach, and they're going to have good players. Now there's players at Michigan have a 30-day window. But a lot of schools don't have a budget or the budget to take on another player. Now some schools can, some schools can't. So it's going to be interesting. But it's not like college basketball wasn't interesting anyway. Somebody just dumped a bottle of Tabasco on our scrambled eggs, and we'll just have to figure it out.
Yeah, that's a fascinating point about budget and that 30-day window. Coach, speaking of, superstar players, you've got a couple of guys that'll be drafted tomorrow night. And we were talking earlier, like all the NBA talent that you produce, those guys are all successful in the NBA. Like they all exceed where they were selected. So what goes into that, and how do you get guys prepared to be so good as pros?
Well, I think the fathers, I'm going to give a lot of credit to these fathers, but not to diminish the role of the mother either. But one of the biggest differences now versus I was a head coach in the Pac-10 when I was 31 years old. I was hired when I was 31. I was 32 when the season started. So I was 87, 88. So that tells you that I came from a time when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth. But the 80s, in the early mid 80s when, the Big East, when they exploded onto the scene with TV contracts, and then here comes Nike. Here comes these iconic coaches like John Thompson and Jim Boeheim and Louis Carnesecca, Rick Pitino, Rick Barnes. The Big East was a big deal, and they introduced themselves. Before that, you had the ACC with North Carolina was the constant there until Coach Krzyzewski showed up, and then they became the constant. Big Ten has always been great. SEC started thriving, and the game started changing. But I think the biggest change that's not talked about is the presence of the Black father now. They're educated. They do their research. They don't choose schools. They choose coaches. I want to send my son to a coach or coaching staff where my son can develop. The first parent that I heard say it in those terms was in 2021 or 22 when we were recruiting Jarris Walker. His father, Horace Walker, Jairus was in school at IMG Academy down in Bradenton, but Quantas White and I, my assistant, we flew into Baltimore, rented a car, drove across the state line in Pennsylvania to their house. And his father, that was a great home visit, awesome home visit. Horace and Marcia is just they're proud immigrants who came to this country for a better life. They raised 4 great children, 3 Division I student athletes, 3 girls, and then Jairus. And he said he didn't know a lot about the colleges, and that's what most of the coaches were talking about: the college, the school, the alumni, all that stuff. And that did not register with him. He grew up in Guyana. So when they were talking about the things that make their program great or what they're known for, that wasn't a connection for him. So he realized that he needed to send his son somewhere where he could get as close to his potential as possible. So I think we went up there twice. We probably went down to IMG to see Jairus 3 or 4 times, whatever we were allowed to do. And I remember the last time he talked to us, he said, "I'm not going to choose a school. I'm going to choose a coach. We're going to choose the coach or coaching staff that can best help my son reach his potential." And so that's how he researched this. And there's other coaches that they like, but we're fortunate enough that they chose Houston. And he didn't need to come to Houston to get drafted. He was going to get drafted anyway. I think what he wanted to see was if he could get in the lottery. So Jairus came. He had a successful year. He was a number 8 pick in the draft. Later that night, Marcus Sasser was the 25th pick in the draft. Before that, we had Quentin Grimes to the Knicks at 25 with Damian Dotson, I think in 2018, 17 or 18. Jamal Shed. So we've had a bunch of guys get drafted. I've had some guys that I thought should have gotten drafted. Kyler Edwards, for instance. I thought Kyler Edwards could play on play in the NBA. And now we have these 4 guys. Kingston. I just got off the phone with Kingston's agent for an update. She was calling and got some good news there. Senac, Chris, was my favorite player to coach on this team. I absolutely adored coaching Chris Senac. He's the same kid every day. His attitude, his effort, his body language, his commitment to the team, his commitment to his teammates, clear understanding of who he is, the highs and lows of the season from June until into March. He was our most consistent player every single day. Emmanuel Sharp, Milos, just warriors. I think the guy that's going to surprise people once he gets in the league is going to be Milos Juzan. Don't judge him from this year. Judge him from last year. He took a team that had gone to the Sweet 16 the year before and won the Big 12 championship in their first year. He comes in and replaces one of our best players ever here, Jamal Shed. And we get off to a rocky start, and all of a sudden he got a little wind beneath his sails, and he just took off. And next thing you know, we're 35-4 playing for the national championship, and that's Milos, you know. And then Emmanuel, I think Emmanuel's flying up the draft boards. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go anywhere from 30 to 40. Chris is going to go somewhere late teens, early 20s, somewhere in there. So we have 4 guys that can get drafted. We've got another class coming in this year with hopes and dreams of someday playing professional basketball. And that's part of our jobs as coaches, to help these guys realize their dreams. I ask them, what's the goal here? Where do you want to be? And when they tell me they want to play in the NBA, I said, okay, let's get to work. This is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do it every day. There's standards that we're going to hold you to, and if you don't meet those standards, we're going to hold you accountable. So, but guys like Emmanuel Sharp, Emmanuel was here 5 years. I didn't have to hold him accountable because he was responsible. Responsibility is more important than accountability. Responsibility means you bought into it. Now I'm going to hold these other kids accountable because this is what coach and the culture require here. So we've been blessed with high level character kids. When I woke up this morning, I had a text from J1 Roberts, and he had his uniform on. They won a championship last night in Germany.
Wow.
Well, he had his jersey on, and he had his a medal. It's kind of like Wyndham Clark. You know, he had that medal that being the U.S. Open champion winner. Well, Wang had two medals on, an award he got, and then his team won the championship. No surprise, J1 was the winner. He's the winningest player in the history of University of Houston. His first year in professional basketball, his team wins a championship last night in Berlin. So that's the thing I love about this program. We have great kids that have high standards for themselves, and whether it's Kingston or Rob Gray, who didn't get drafted, all-time leading scorer in the American Athletic Conference. You could go on and on about this program, but really proud of our staff. Our staff deserves a lot of credit for this, but the real credit goes to the players because they're the one that comes in and puts in the work.
You know, and just on that, there was so much more I want to talk with you about, but I think like a year ago, we were asking you about the status of Uzan. Would he be back? He was so impactful for your championship, you know, your run to the championship game last year. And, you know, and then for this season, it almost says a lot about him, probably more about him this year than last year, based on, you know, what he did, the mentality he took on, knowing that, you know, here's a freshman coming in that's so talented that in many ways, you know, took his spot and probably hurt his draft status from where it was a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Well, I mean, we'll see Wednesday night, but for sure, Milo's had to sacrifice. No doubt about that. You know, today's June 22nd. I was on the baseball field this morning at 5 minutes to 6. Workout started at 6:30, but usually we start about 6:10 because our guys they live in constant fear of being late, which is a good thing. You know, they're not if they learn to be on time, that means they've learned the most important thing about a job. Always be on time. Somebody's always watching. So the first step in building a culture is being on time. And then from there, you build attitudes and efforts. And we've just never had a problem with that. We've turned down kids we thought that wouldn't have been good fits here. I wouldn't have been a good fit for the kid. Program's probably not a good fit for him. But the kids that we do take, it's no surprise to us. Like, the first time I saw Kingston, I think he was 15 years old. Kingston's still 19. Chris is 19. Those guys aren't even 20 years old yet. But we recruited those guys a lot. I remember Casey Beard, one of our assistants, went over to Istanbul, Turkey to watch the USA team. We were also recruiting Koa Pete at the time. And so it was Koa and Chris and Boozer and a bunch of those guys, and they were in the, I think it was under 18 World Championships in Istanbul. And one of the teams the United States played was a team from West Africa, a country called Guinea. And their starting center was a guy by the name of Erfan Diane, who became the #1 high school center in the country this year. And that was our first exposure to him. We got on him then, built a relationship. And next thing you know, he signs with Houston. But basketball is and recruiting never ends. You're always recruiting. And the key to, I think, sustaining your program, #1 is honesty. You got to be upfront with them. Maybe something they don't want to hear, but you got to tell them. And I think that's one of the reasons why our kids never transfer. is that we don't promise them the world. I don't tell them they're going to start. I don't even think Kingston even asked, was he going to start? He knew Milos was coming back. And all I said is, we'll make it work. Milos asked the same thing. I said, we'll make it work. So it's being able to put the pieces together is a process. You got to believe in your process. You got to believe in your eyes, and you got to believe in your eyelids. Sometimes you can close your eyes and look at the back of your eyelid and say, what is it I want this to look like? So I'm looking at it right now, like this year's team. I'm thinking of DJ Thomas Jr. and Delrico Gillespie and Braden East and Mercy and Chase. I want them to look like this on defense. I want them to look like this on offense. Now, how do we get it together? So that vision of what you want your team to be and the kind of kids you want to coach is a choice that every coach makes.
Awesome stuff. Coach, we got to let you go, but man, we are super grateful for your time and really excited about the team you've put together for this upcoming season. So we'll talk to you again about that soon. Great to see you. Again, happy belated Father's Day, and we'll catch up here another time.
Well, I'll be in New York tomorrow night for Chris and Kingston. I'll be sitting with Chris's family in the green room. And then Wednesday morning, I'm going to fly to Orlando, and I'm going to be with Emmanuel Sharp. Kellen will fly to Vegas to be with Milos. So we try to stand there with them and see them cry and be happy and give them a hug, tell them we love them, and get back here and coach our team.
Man, it's going to be a great couple of days. Enjoy it, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me on. Have a great day.
See ya. Houston coach Kelvin Sampson.
If there's any coach that exemplifies Father's Day and true fatherhood, it's Kelvin. I mean, his family is a huge part of the program. They're intertwined with the program, not just his son, who's an assistant, but his daughter, who runs the program. What a true mensch, as my people would call him.
Yep, he's the best. All right, we'll take a break. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Fleming's got some space, and he throws it down. Wow! Kingston Fleming's explosive to the hole.
He's never seen anybody with this burst. Rebound, and it's at Rowe. He steps through, and it's blocked away by Fleming. Just amazing. The athleticism at the rim. They're going to check it. I'm not so sure.
Mabel LaRua returns from the bench. There's a dunk from Kingston Fleming. Oh, my. Woo. Boy, he threw that down quick.
Side, they didn't offer to help at all. Fleming's great pass, and Sanak dunks it home.
Keep it simple. Make the smart play.
Fleming.
That's not one of them.
Stolen away, 2-on-1. Sharp, step back three.
There's going to be a trap, and it's already been thrown, and the ball is not completed, and that leads to Emmanuel Sharp.
Fleming way downtown. Got it! Oh boy!
This is actually really good defense by Karchenkov.
Run, it's now a 10-point cushion. Burks. The iron downright rude to him. He's had two halfway down the cylinder and out.
Is that worse than unkind?
It is. Especially when that happens on the back end.
Now Fleming's recognizing there's a mismatch with Bowl and takes him and able to score that one over the top. Again, those mismatches are there all over the floor.
Flemings, he can create space for that forward. And he does right away.
Absolutely magnificent.
And the ability to be able to deliver it with either hand, impressive. He'll likely get plenty of practice doing that today as
Fleming's on the lob inside to Chris Sanak.
Folks, watch as the basketball enters the paint. All of a sudden, Bobby Miller jumps up there and it opens up the backside. And what a beautiful read and pass by Kingston Flemings.
On a Modelo Monday, he's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. Dusty May, the Michigan head coach, is headed to the Dallas Mavericks the day before the NBA draft. And now the question becomes, who does Michigan hire? And could there be some type of a domino effect that could impact the Big 12 in some way?
Well, yeah, very, very reasonably there could be. We just had Kelvin Sampson on, and if you're Michigan, I mean, quite frankly, the first call you're making is to Kelvin Sampson. Now, Michigan football and Michigan basketball, two different things. Yeah, obviously, in terms of just, do you leave Houston to take the Michigan job? I don't see it. I think at this point in his career, Kelvin's got a program where he wants it and is, very much calling the shots that way, that he doesn't want for anything. Also, look, one of Dusty May's top assistants, former Oklahoma State head basketball coach Mike Boynton, and a guy that probably didn't get a fair crack at Oklahoma State. And that's not Oklahoma State's fault. It's many factors, but is Mike Boynton the guy that takes over? Do you do the internal hire there? That would obviously be because I think anytime in college sports somebody gets hired for a head coaching job, you're concerned about what that means to the rest of the league. I think in this case, though, if they hire Mike Boynton, it'd be perfect for a lot of other programs around the country that are worried that their coach may get plucked.
And internally, Boynton received a tremendous amount of credit for just how dominant Michigan was this year, because defensively, there's nobody better. And he's probably the one guy that could keep it together, if you will, rather than having to it's wild, man. This late in the process, holy smokes. Okay, we'll do it again tomorrow. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. He's Ari Timken for Taman Turner, our audio producer, for Anthony Smith, operating the camera at the Big 12 Studios compound. I'm James Westling. For now, we're out.